Joel, welcome to the J. Garcia podcast. How's it going down there in Baja?
Hey Jay, yeah, thanks for having me. It's going really well. I'm really having a good time down here. Other than obviously the couple of mishaps that have been happening recently, some within my control and some out of my control. But
Yeah.
other than that, I'm doing really well, which we'll probably get into talking about later. But yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks
Yeah.
for having me.
So, for those of you watching that don't know, Joel here has taken a kind of an epic trip, right? You're going from where are you starting and where are you gonna end? And you're in the middle of it, by the way, right now, right? So,
Yeah, I'm about a third of the way down my trip. So I started up in a town called Coldfoot up in Alaska, which is above the Arctic Circle.
oh wow, way
And
up there.
yeah, so like, you go to Fairbanks and it's super far north, and then you like take this dirt road just right up. And I didn't quite make it over the Brooks Range, which is kind of the very tip of the top of the continent. But yeah, I made it pretty far up there. It was pretty high up there. And then I turned around and I'm heading down to Tierra del Fuego in Argentina. So
Wow.
yeah, pretty long, epic journey. But I think obviously the means of the journey is the most epic part, and probably the reason why you're having me on here,
Yeah,
doing it in a
because
solar powered van, right?
yeah, solar power. So it's an electric vehicle, but you're 100% powered in through solar. Like you're not plugging in anywhere, or you're mostly solar and plugging in somewhere.
It's mostly solar, and I have plugged in. Like there have been some instances, like for example, when the accident happened down here in Catavina, where the panels got ripped off the roof. I obviously couldn't charge off the sun, so I had to go to someone's electrical box and put my own
Plug
breaker
in
in.
there.
So,
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
um,
and it's cool. The vehicle that you chose is it's like a big van kind of thing. It's like bigger than a van. It's kind of like a bread truck, like almost like a UPS delivery truck size, but it looks different, right? What's that
yeah,
one called? What's the
it's
brand?
a it's a 2010 International E-Star.
E
Like,
Star.
yeah, it was made in. They were modeled in England off a company called Modec made them,
Okay.
and they made a bunch of them in England. Then the company went bankrupt, and then International and Navistar teamed up and bought the rights to produce them. I think they made about 100 or so of them in North America here, and yeah, they're kind of strange. They have a bit of a weird spaceshipy European look to them,
Yeah,
um,
the
and they're
front
quite rare
doesn't
too.
the front doesn't quite jive with what you think a truck should look like. It's got a big like glass, right? It's like the whole windshield is like almost the whole front, and yeah, but it's a very interesting look to it, and it's perfect for the thing that you were doing, right? What did you
Yeah,
end up doing? Is like those were electric already, but as I remember, they had like lead acid batteries or something. Something like the battery
the
wasn't up to spec for what you would want it for, right?
the Modec had the I think the Modec started with lead acid, and then that was kind of like the transition between lead acid and lithium. And like, I'm not completely up with the history of the van. I know the one that I had certainly has lithium iron phosphate
Oh,
cells in it
already it had them in there.
already. I had
Oh,
80
okay.
kilowatt hours, but the power density of those batteries was just ridiculous. Like, they weigh about, like, up close to 2 tons,
Oh,
and
wow.
80 kilowatt hours. So we added some extra. I built the van, or I did the modifications to the van up in Ashland, Oregon, with a company called Solar Roller, Brett and Kira
Okay.
Beaver. And we built a 40 kilowatt hour lithium polymer, like the pouch cells, the little
Uh-huh.
chocolate bar looking cells,
Yeah.
um, which is kind of like half the power. It's 40 kilowatt hours, but it's about a quarter of the density. So much better power to weight ratio for those. So
Ah, I see.
yeah,
So you have the original lithium battery in it, which is 80 kilowatt hours, and then you added 40 kilowatt hours
yeah,
of these lipo cells or lithium polymer
exactly.
pouch cells.
Lithium polymer. Yeah, they're like lithium nicad, something like that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, there's some sort of chemistry, but they're lithium. The anode
Yeah,
is lithium. So
and you put
yeah.
a video recently, right, where you were, cause I saw it, like where you were like soldering and, cause none of like you haven't released any of the footage of your trip so far, right? Or you have?
No, there's 2 seasons on there of the trip so far. So like
Oh,
I've
there
done
is. Okay.
there's vlog episodes of the trip coming down from Alaska all the way down to here, basically.
Ah, okay.
And just recently, because basically what happened was we didn't really set too much time aside for the build. It was kind of like a spontaneous decision, and I kind of just said, "All right, we're doing it." And then I moved to Ashland and built the van, and then I just never released the build footage. So like,
Ah, I see. So that's what you're
when,
releasing now.
exactly when the incident happened, I was like, okay, well, like I'm not going to be making content because I'm not traveling. Let's go back to the vault and see what we can pull out. And so, yeah, it's kind of confusing. I feel kind of bad, but I think people are going to eventually understand how I'm releasing my content. It just, yeah,
Yeah,
it takes a bit of,
I mean, it's hard when you're traveling. You know, you either travel or people don't realize that producing content it's a full time job. So you're either producing a TV show or you're traveling. You know, you can kind of
yeah.
do both. And I guess people have tried it, right? It's the same thing with Asta Alaska, Ben.
Yes, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It was very confusing with him when you would know him. I know probably for regular people that was just seeing the videos, it was okay. But if you knew him and you were following him in his other social media platforms, you were like, "Wait, where are you? I just saw a video where you're down in Mexico and now you're up here in LA. Like, what? I just saw you 2 weeks ago up here. You know, it's like." So it was a little bit confusing, but yeah, it's a challenge basically. Um,
Yeah,
doing two
it's
jobs.
super different. Like everybody's super into the long way up at the moment, you know, with Ewan McGregor and Charlie, because you did an interview with Charlie, right?
Charlie, yeah, a couple of weeks
Like
ago we
a
did.
couple of weeks ago. I watched it. It was really interesting. But the thing, you know, when you watch that, they're always. I think that's kind of like the benchmark of what people want to see, because they're all, you
Yeah,
know, but they don't realize that they have, you know, Rivians chasing them with cameras and stabilizers and all of this sort of gear, and then
it's full
editors and
team,
post production, and it's just me. It's
and
just
it
me and
and it took
tons.
a year. By the way, they did this last year, right?
Yeah,
It's 2019, and then they released it now in 2020. So they
um,
had a whole year to sit around and play with the footage, and then make it into
uh,
episodes and the whole thing. It's like a whole production, right? It's like 300 people. When you look
yeah,
at the credits, I mean, there's five
credit.
researchers, right? There's
Yeah,
five researchers. There's five people who are getting passports and all of that. Not it's a crazy production.
yeah.
Um,
And
and then it's you.
me and you, right? Like we're just. It's like, all right, whose job is that? Oh, it's mine.
Yes.
Who's doing the graphics for this video? Well, that's me. I'll do them.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's tough, right? And we're. I feel the same way as you, right? People are like, "Why is your content so all over the place?" And I'm doing the best I can here. I don't have a team helping me. You know, it's like I'm a
it's
one
like
man show.
just enjoy your free content. Like they even made everyone pay for the long way up. You know, we're giving it to everyone for free. So come on,
Yeah. So you're uploading those in your channel.
on
You
YouTube,
have a
yeah,
YouTube channel. Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
weird because I kind of looked at that, but I guess I didn't find them. I found the one where you were doing the battery thing, and I kind of read and I go, oh, you're doing that right now because you have because you're stuck, I guess, right now, right? And so you explain there that that's why you're releasing these build videos or whatever. And I find them interesting because I'm all to batteries and stuff. But I didn't come across the entire season where you're actually traveling.
Yeah,
Um,
so there's two playlists on there. I don't know if anybody's watching this and you want to check that out. You go to my channel, just Root Del Sol on YouTube, and you can either, like any YouTube channel, you can either watch the most released videos, which is probably what you did because you're busy, you don't have time, and you probably saw those most recent videos, which are of the build. But there's
yeah.
something like 4 playlists on there, and the first playlist I ever started is called Chapter One, and it literally
Okay.
starts with me. Well, there's an even earlier playlist called Prologue, and that's before I start from the Arctic Circle and turn down. And then Chapter One starts literally at the Arctic Circle. It's got, me in front of the sign. Me and my buddy were there. We had a wrestle. I did a headstand in front of the sign, and we turned around and we came down. And that was Chapter One. Chapter One ended at the border of Canada and the USA, and then Chapter Two started at the border of the USA down into Mexico up until when my accident happened, and that's the end of Chapter Two. So
Oh, I see.
yeah, basically, yeah, there's a bunch of content. There's lots of content on there. That's another thing. Like it can be kind of deterring sometimes when you're producing content and you're not getting the views. You know, you're like, oh, this is good. Like,
Yeah.
like people like this. People are watching this, but it just for some reason, whatever, you know, my thumbnails and my titles aren't good enough, and people don't
Yeah.
watch it. So, but
Yeah.
you know, I really enjoy it. I sometimes I'll be making a video and I need to refer back to something that happened in the past, and I'll just watch the whole episode just to remember that time. And I'm like, even if nobody watches this, this is a great memory for me. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
been
and the cool
one
thing
hell
is
of a-
that someone it doesn't mean that no one's gonna watch it. Like I've had videos where they didn't get much views forever for years, and all of a sudden, for some weird reason, they get picked up, and bam, everybody's interested in the thing. You know, and you're like, what? That's so
maybe
crazy.
maybe being on the Jehu Garcia podcast will
You
skyrocket me to the moon.
you never know. I'm kind of doing the same thing as everyone. I'm starting all over because my channel, my audience doesn't is not used to this long form content,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I'm not getting a ton of views on these. And some audience is starting to find it already, right? And so that's good. But I feel like I'm starting all over again. It's like it doesn't matter if I have 300,000 subscribers. It doesn't matter because when
Yeah.
I put these videos out there, it takes just as much work. And then I put them up there, and it's like, the videos they didn't come in the tens of thousands of videos, of views or whatever. But I'm
But you,
like, it doesn't matter. I enjoy doing this. So I'm just gonna keep going, and eventually it'll grow to an audience
yeah, you
where
get to talk to cool people, I guess, all the time. That like, I'm not trying to call myself cool, but you get to talk to cool people all
well,
the
you're
time. And
doing cool stuff. I mean, not everyone gets up and tries to travel the world in a converted, you know,
I think
electric
there's
car.
I think there's two of us on the planet. So
No,
yeah,
there's quite a bit of them actually, but like, yeah, you're one of them, and I should know more about this thing. And I know that you've been in my radar because people have told me in the comments, every once in a while, you're just like, oh, you should check out these guys. They're doing this thing or whatever. Yeah, it's interesting. So let's talk about the chapter 1 and 2. How was that experience? How long did it take to travel all of like Alaska and part of Canada, right? All the way you made it into
yeah.
the
So
border of U.S.
the route was from up the Arctic Circle, and we drove down the main highway, basically all the way through into the Yukon Territory, and then basically into British Columbia, and then straight down to Vancouver, and that was chapter 1.
How long did that
Yeah,
take?
that took about, so we were using up there. They have a hydro grid up there, and
Okay.
winter was coming. So where we couldn't charge off solar, we were plugging into the grid, into the
Okay.
into the hydro grid. We even like did an episode where we went to a hydro dam. There was like a runner river hydro. A lot of my content is based around energy and where it comes from and all of that sort of stuff. So we try to pick those sorts of stories out and
Yeah.
highlight where this energy is coming from, because that's a big part of electrification and the future of energy
Yeah.
and the purpose of what we're doing. But yeah, like it took about 3 months, I think, from there to Vancouver. If we solar charged, we wouldn't have made it. We would have just got stuck, and it wouldn't have happened. So
Because of
that
time constraints, or I mean, you'll eventually charge. I know the sun is it's at the Arctic Circle. There's not a lot of sun, right? It's like the
no,
angle, it's really low, and so
comes up like this and goes down, never goes over your head. So
yes. So
uh,
then you would just take forever to charge because now you have a giant pack. It's 130
20,
kilowatt hour to 120 kilowatt hours. Okay, for those of you who don't know, that's a giant. It's a obscenely giant battery pack. I mean, anything you haven't seen a battery pack bigger than that. Probably most average people have not. It's like I guess it would be like 120,000 iPhones or something like that. That's the equivalent of the energy that you have in there, right? Like, if you have
I
to,
love putting things into perspective for people. That's a really good one. If you don't mind, I'm going to take that one from now on. It's like 120,000 iPhones.
yeah. I mean, that's essentially that's what you got there.
Uh-huh.
So
So yeah, we plugged in. So it took less time than what we wanted, what we probably would have if we did solar. But I also left in August, and we made it to Vancouver in November. We made it in November. So by the time, in the Pacific Northwest, I don't know if you spent much time up there. It's by the time October comes around, like we got caught in snowstorms already
Ah, okay.
up there.
Yeah.
So, and we were solar charging at the time because there was no grid. There's places where the grid just doesn't exist up there. So, um,
Yeah.
we got caught in snowstorms, and we were trying to make like 30 miles, just to get to the next hydro charging station, and it'd take us a week, and we'd just be sitting there with no reception. We ran out of food a couple of times, like we had to like hitchhike into town, and the truckers were like, "What the hell are you doing out here? Like you are." There's grizzly
Crazy.
bears everywhere. You like there's no one here. Like, what are you doing here? And we're like, well, crazy story, but we're trying to drive to Argentina. And they're like, where's Argentina? What the hell?
You're in the wrong continent, buddy. Come on.
So it was quite the adventure. It was actually, I just did a post this morning on my Instagram, actually, just sort of like talking about, that was for me like the first electric vehicle I ever owned was this vehicle. So that's like one step in the direction of understanding energy and how we use it, and maybe the future of technology as far as locomotion and all of that sort of stuff. So I was going through that, but then also with the renewable energy constraints and all of that sort of stuff, I was also weaning myself off of fossil fuels. And there was a lot of like things that were happening in my brain that were like, bing, like I was sort of like, whoa, like this is a big deal. This is different. This is something that we can achieve, and I kind of like was having all of those sort of ooh-ah moments in my own experience. And then along with all of like it's so beautiful up there, Jay. Like it's just incredibly beautiful. The mountains, the glaciers, the animals, it's
Yeah.
wild,
It's a big place too, right? I mean, it's giant. It's like a whole country of its own over there.
It just never ends. Like it's, and people are, nice and lovely. I mean, they're not Californians. They're still Alaskans, so they like their guns and, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But super kind and super welcoming and very inviting and yeah, so super fun in that regard. So had a lot of fun in chapter one. It was a really good time, and it was kind of like my awakening. It was like, whoa, like I'm here, I'm doing it. I can remember like getting off the ferry, because I took a ferry from Washington and Bellingham to get up to Alaska in the first place. I didn't drive the whole way up, because I was in Portland, in Oregon. So I had to
So
sort
you
of
skip Canada, basically.
basically to get up there. And because I
Okay.
was running out of time, that, the snow was going to come and start destroying everything for the year. So
Yeah.
I just raced up there on a ferry. And what was I saying? When I got off the ferry, I was alone. And we'd never really even tested the van. We'd never even taken it out into a park or anything to even just like see how fast or slow it would charge, or like I had no idea what mileage I was going to be able to get off of the solar
Oh,
solar
wow.
panels. Yeah, so I was very much like just
Testing on the field, in the field.
exactly. I got off the ferry and I can remember just being like, what the hell am I doing? Like just like kind of slapping myself, like it's real, like it's happening. And so yeah, I just started driving and just worked things out. So it was a very like raw, real, adventurous, awakening moment, and I loved it. I had such a good time. And a tough time too. I'm not saying it was all easy. Like there was a lot of like, I was drained because we just spent 2 months converting the thing. We had to use a lot of our brain and physical energy to do that. And then
Yeah.
and then just this whole new like range anxiety, all of these range anxiety with solar, the solar charging
Yeah.
aspect and grids and working out how to use electricity safely and all of these sorts of things were sort of like very draining. But yeah, looking back,
And you're starting in a very like one of the toughest places. It's gonna get easier as you move down, and then it's gonna start getting harder again as you move south of the equator, right? But
if I time it right though, like when you get up into the poles, the polar regions, summers are brighter than winters are dark, but the
yeah,
summers are actually brighter. The sun doesn't go down sometime. Like
yeah, it's like on like 24 hours. It just goes around, right? Like yeah,
exactly, it just goes around you. So if you can get your solar panels angling at the sun, it's like it's a positive. It can be. It's obviously not as strong but the solar energy is not as strong. The photovoltaic energy is not as strong, but it's still available. You can still make it happen. So
Yeah.
the thing was like at the start of the journey, and it is going to get easier, like to agree with you completely, because at the start of the journey, I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
I was just like figuring it out as I go, and things were breaking. Like we're in a Walmart parking lot in Fairbanks, and we pulled the array down, and one of the arms just snapped, and half of the solar arrays just like fell down on the ground. And I was like, oh my god, like what am I doing?
Wow.
I got to fix this on the road, on the fly, kind of thing. And so
Your
then
panels, they're the glass kind?
no, they're flexible.
Oh, they're
They're
the
flexible.
flexible ones. Okay, so they're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
super heavy because the glass ones are really heavy, right? And you have a
yeah,
lot of them in there.
definitely.
For those of you who don't know,
Uh-huh.
he's got the van and he's got these things that stick out, so it's got like 3 times more area than the roof of your van, right? It's like three
Yeah,
times,
yeah.
and then you can tilt them. And so there's how many panels are on there?
There's 20. There were 24 sol 330-watt solar
Okay,
panels
those
on
are
there.
the big
So
ones. 30,
just under
36.
eight,
Those are the 36
300.
cells, each one.
Yeah, 16 by 6. Is that right? No, 16 by 5. No, there's lots of cells on there. Yeah,
So
they're
they're the
big. They're big.
bigger, they're the bigger panels.
Well, they were custom made. They were
Oh, they were
custom made
custom made.
specifically for this project. Yeah,
No
and
way.
that's
Who made
probably.
them?
I got them made in China over
Oh,
in
okay. Okay.
Shenzhen or something like that.
Oh,
There's a
I
company who makes
see.
custom flexible panels, and so the cells inside of them were the first generation Maxion solar sun power cells.
Oh, yeah.
So
And those are the best ones. They're actually made in the U.S. and somehow shipped over there. I think, right? It's that.
exactly, they buy packs of the cells and then they fabricate their own flexible
They have the
panels.
highest density. Like they have the most efficient
Mhm.
panels that you can get, and the way they make them is like they cut them off a wafer of like silica or whatever. And yeah,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
so those
Okay.
are cool, and they're custom made, and it's a giant area. Like I mean, you have like this giant thing that you can tilt, and
It's
that's
hard
how
to
you're
even
getting.
and without a visual aid, it's really hard to
It's hard.
demonstrate to explain it, right? Yeah, I actually enjoy hearing other people try to describe it without visual aid because even sometimes with the van in front of people, it's hard to explain. They're just like, what? Like, what
Yeah,
am I
because
looking?
they're not always deployed, so they're tucked in,
Yeah.
right, while you're traveling, and then well, it
Uh-huh.
means you have to park somewhere and then take out this
Yeah.
structure, which is 2 flat panels that come out, and yeah, so it's a big thing, and it was designed up there by solar roller guys, right, and you didn't test
Uh,
it, so then you have to kind of figure it out as you're going along.
we just didn't have time, you know. Poor Brett and Kira, I kind of like told them about the project. Basically, the way it all like came to be is I lived in Canada for 5 years prior to this.
Okay,
I was living up there. And
you're
I,
Australian.
I'm Australian, yeah. I'm
Okay,
originally from the Gold Coast in Australia, but
okay.
I moved to Canada in 2014 and blah, 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 blah. I fell in love and then love ended and I was
Okay.
heartbroken. And what better way to mend a broken heart than to build a solar powered spaceship and drive across
There's
the
one way, yes. Go on some crazy adventure around the world, yeah. And then
Some
you
people
went
might
up
do
to
it.
them, so then you went up to these solar roller guys, and he had built already a couple of vehicles, but nothing that big, right? Um,
No, yeah.
did he put in any
There was
fight, or did he say, "Nah, man, this is a crazy idea," or was he like, "Yes, let's build it, let's do it," you know?
basically like we had one conversation on the phone and I was like, look, this is the situation. Like I've got to clean up my life in Canada. I've got stuff all because I was living all over the country. I was moving for work and all sorts of stuff. So I had like surfboards on the East Coast. I had snowboards on the West Coast. I had furniture in Quebec where I was living. My car was, so I just had to clean my life up. And I was like, hey, like I'm going to organize my stuff and then we're going to build this thing. And he was like, all right, like the sooner you can get here, the better. And I was like, and by the way, I need to be in the Arctic Circle in August. Like, otherwise it's not going to happen. Like this year, we'll have to wait for next year. And he was like, get here, like, let's do it. Let's make it happen. So
Okay.
I say poor Brett, but he knew what he signed up for as well at the same time. But
Yeah,
in
well,
saying that too,
And the
It was
crazy
it
thing is
was
that look, if you had come to me, I would have been like, "You're crazy." No, that's a crazy idea. Now you need more time. You need to test the stuff. We need to do like proof of concept. That's how I would approach. But Brett, I guess he done it already, right? He's built other cars. He built other cars for customers and stuff. So he was like, he had a better understanding. Like, yeah, we can do this. We can build a thing that works or whatever, and then you can. So he was on board 100% from day one,
yeah.
I guess.
He
Oh,
he
okay.
he started building like lead acid solar powered golf carts. Like that was 15 years ago. He was sort of doing this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, he did a bus with lead acid batteries,
yeah,
which
he
I
did his
thought
bus
like,
with
what? That's crazy. Like I would never do that. Like, that's it doesn't have enough range, the heavy thing or whatever. But he did it, and
uh,
then he moved transitioned to lithium, right? And so I'm like, oh, it's a good thing. Like it was a stepping
stepping
stone kind
stones.
of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But
I'm
yeah,
like,
you're
that's
right.
great.
He had a bunch of experience, and so it was easier for him to see it possible. But I mean, like in the heat of the moment, it was like, well, we've taken on too much. But we got it done. We got it done, and that was the main thing. But it was chaotic. So we just didn't have time to test it. But
Yeah.
but yeah, like I think any sane person like yourself would say, hey, like this is
Yeah,
not right.
well, I don't know. To tell the truth, mostly it's like we're jaded because we know what we do. Like, if you come to me and it's like, hey, let's convert a BW bus with like, like 60, 70 kilowatt hours and, 100, 150 miles of range, I'm like, I'm down. I've done that
Yeah,
before.
yeah,
I know it's possible. I know how to do it, you know. But now you come to me like if you say like put some solar panels in there, I'll be like, no, you're crazy. Like I've never done that. It's a crazy idea. It takes someone like him that's done it already to say,
yeah,
yes, this is
exactly.
possible. We
Yeah,
can do it. So you went to the right guy. Obviously, if you had come to us,
absolutely. Yeah.
I'd be like, you're crazy. Get out of here. You're dreaming.
He was on board, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. We still didn't even know if it was because it was a bigger van,
Yeah.
um, all sorts of things. The weight of a bus versus an E Star is great. Like the E Star is just over 3 tons to start with, and we're
Yeah.
adding batteries and panels, and so it ends up being about 14,000 pounds, at the end of the build.
And
So
then
which
you
is a
got to put your
huge.
stuff in there. Like you got to put your
Well,
food and
that was
your
with
right.
everything in it.
Because
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
that was with everything. So because you
That's
have to
it.
basically convert it into a livable space,
Yeah.
mobile space, right? Because these vans are not set up like that. It's like cargo van kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Michael Breen from EV West has one at the moment that they're working on. They're doing some fancy stuff too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if you watch their video, it's just you can see even my videos too. You can see what it was like when I first got it. It's just a shell,
That's
like
just a shell.
just bare shell. It's basically a cab chassis with a box on the back of it, with a fiberglass box on the back of it. So yeah, we
Yeah.
had to do a bunch of work to the interior and all of that sort of stuff. So
You have to insulate it and then build where you're
yeah,
gonna sleep, where you're gonna cook, where you're gonna,
hmm
store all
yeah.
the equipment that you need, right?
And that thing too, that was not finished when I left as well. So I didn't have running water when I got to the Arctic Circle. Like it's just like it was not that you need it. Like some people live in very crudely converted vans just because they want to get on the road and start exploring. So you
Yeah.
can do it without it. But I just had no like I didn't even have like a bottle with a tap on it, like to fill up a glass of water to get a drink. So I was just like, okay, I've got to
Figured out.
figure it out. And I
Yeah.
basically didn't stop the conversion process until I got down to Mexico last year in January. I'd literally just finished the interior conversions when I got here because I was on the road. I was, making videos and networking and doing all this sort of stuff and converting the van at the same time. And it's like an insane amount of work.
Yeah. So then you crossed the chapter 2. You crossed the U.S. How did that go? Was that much easier? Was that better? Like less challenging,
Absolutely.
maybe? Or
Absolutely, like one night and day, almost
wow.
exactly night and day. I crossed that border, and there was still some problems with like the tracking system of the van. We still needed to do reparations, which we were planning to do when we got back to Oregon with Brett, because he sort of had ideas and stuff like that. So we still needed to do all that.
And that's
So
active tracking. So basically, where you put the panels there and the sun is moving, and these panels are
They
changing
track.
their
Yeah.
angle. Oh,
Yeah,
that's crazy.
it's
That's high
manual.
tech.
It's manual tracking. We do it by hand,
Okay.
but we like get out every hour or two and
Yeah.
follow the sun. But basically, that was not working when we crossed the border into Washington. So we did just flat charge the whole way down. But even that, like the sun in spring in the Pacific Northwest is beautiful, and the weather's lovely. So it was just completely. When I got to California, I was like, I could do this forever. Like this is easy. There were days
Yeah.
where I was getting 80 miles of range off of a day of charging, which is more than most recreational vehicle drivers need.
Yeah.
Um, so there were days where that was happening. It was the weather was lovely, and California's beautiful. That whole West Coast is. I was surfing, rock climbing.
Some
I
people
had
say that.
way
Some
more.
people say it's a terrible place to live. You know. Everybody likes to tell us how bad California is. I'm like, I don't know. I look outside. I'm like, it's beautiful
Look at
here.
all,
I don't know.
what is it that's saying? Look at all the space. That's what they say. Don't they? Look at all the
Yeah,
space.
I
No,
see.
no. It was absolutely beautiful. I mean, I have a lot more friends too on the West Coast of the United States, so there's more friendship sort of vibe, and yeah, it was really nice. And
Because you're
and
doing
just
this by yourself. You're traveling alone at this point.
I had a cameraman who came along for chapter one. His name's
Okay.
Keegan, and he left in Oregon because his visa was running out in the United States. So my
Uh,
visa was a bit longer than his, and also he has a girlfriend, and she wasn't too happy about me kidnapping him for like
yeah, months at a time.
6 month periods of his life. So
Yes. No, that probably would not
yeah,
work.
that's a funny story too. I never met him. I kind of like put some feelers out and said I needed someone to help with the cameras and and editing and stuff like that. And he applied for the post that I put up. And I never met him before until Fairbanks, Alaska. I literally met him in the airport at Alaska where I picked him
Wait, so
up.
you agree to have him without ever meeting him? That's
A
crazy.
stranger.
You
I
know
know.
what? I've always gone like that where I've decided to meet people, right? Because they're just a screen name in your phone or in your contact thing, and I've never met someone that's crazy that I'm like, oh my god, I gotta get rid of this guy. It's always been lovely people that are like, they're amazing. You know what I mean? Like, it never been. I've never regretted taking a chance on like meeting up with someone and spending time with them on some place where I've gone, or like fans or stuff like that, right? They always turn out to be real nice. But you could, I guess, get some crazies. I
Yeah,
guess
I
the
mean,
possibility.
I'm pretty open to that too myself. Well, obviously, I'm pretty open to that too. That idea of just meeting a stranger and having an adventure with them. There have been some like hairy circumstances where I'm like, okay, I need to get out of here, kind of thing. But 95, 99, 98%, I don't know what the percentage is. It's like you described, just like it's like, oh, that was fun. I'm glad I've got a new friend now.
Yeah,
But this was different. It was like commitment. It was like, okay, you're gonna live with me in this box,
yeah,
and we don't know what's gonna happen. And I explained that to him too. I was like, look, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe I'll just tell you to leave at some point in time because it doesn't work. And we kind of had
yeah.
all of those agreements before it happened. So, yeah. But basically, we went from Alaska to Vancouver together, and then we drove from there to to Oregon together. And then he left, and then I did California and crossed into Mexico by myself, which was
Okay.
which was really nice. It was like another thing was a super different feeling. I had my space back, and I mean, it's not like I didn't have a good time because he was there or whatever. It wasn't that at all. It was just different. It was just all very different. We had lots of fun together, and we did a lot of cool film projects together and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, and then having my own space, and then I was just sort of like the master of the ship, but the ship was just manned, but just me. So very different, but cool too. It was a fun time. So yeah, I'm doing it alone now. Now from now on, I'm like, and you're never alone either. When you travel, you're never alone. There's just always someone, especially when you drive a vehicle like this. People see it and they're like, "What are you doing parking in this crap hole? Come and stay in my
Yeah.
beachfront property, or like come and yeah, you always get those sorts of opportunities as well, which is lovely. I really enjoy that.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I guess yeah. If you're the type that you can travel alone, yeah, I guess it'd be great. If you're not, because a lot of people are really scared of being lonely, right? Like, and it could get scary sometimes, I guess, when you're out in new places. But I mean, you have the adventure spirit, obviously. You're traveling, so yeah, you probably can deal with that better than the average person. That's cool. So let's talk about the accident. What happened that got you stuck in Baja right now?
So we came down Baja, across the border. Keegan came back. He was planning on coming back for a bit more of the adventure before leaving again. Um, but he came back, so we were traveling together, and we were traveling in a convoy. We'd met another girl, Verde Dentro. Her name's Bea. She's a solo female van lifer. And then some other people, like some people from Quebec. We sort of had this convoy going where we're all just driving down Baja together. And we got to a town called Catavina, which is about what 300 miles, 200 miles ish from Ensenada, or 400 miles from Tijuana,
South?
and south of Tijuana. And it's just before you get into the Valle de los Cirios, which is, if anyone's been to Baja or haven't been to Baja, it's where all the cactus start. It's like the Sonoran Desert sort of starts.
Yeah.
And it's epic. It's just like, what am I looking at, kind of thing. So we kind of got there. We got just to there, and to get into that valley, you obviously have to drive down a mountain range. And what happens at that mountain range is all the coastal winds from both the Mar de Cortez and Mar de Pacifico, they come up and they hit the mountains. And so the winds were just, I don't know, particularly that day, they were crazy. And we were driving on the highway, and basically the winds got underneath the solar panels, and I'd forgotten to put a little bolt. It was like a 1/4-inch bolt, maybe not even a 1/4 inch. I don't know, less, but in for safety. And the winds got up underneath it and like lifted and sheared all the hinges of the array, and then just like flipped and ripped the whole array off the roof. It was all closed.
Wow.
It wasn't even deployed, and just like threw it, in the air, and it landed face down on the road and just bent.
Oh, wow. So the entire thing was destroyed. I mean, it was just.
Yeah. I mean, luckily the van didn't get there's a huge ballast. Obviously, the weight of the batteries is going to keep it pretty stable, but the van didn't even get nudged. If your wheel comes off of the road, it could have been, you don't know what could have happened. So luckily that didn't happen, and it was just the solar panels, but obviously me seeing my solar panels in that state was like, what? Like, after all this, like, this is how it ends. Like, all of them, obviously that's like 15 to 20 grand worth of stuff just lying on the road, on the side of the highway in Mexico. I was like, what am I going to do? So
I see.
That happened. Basically, we gathered it all up, all the bits, all of the metal, we taped it all together, put it back onto the roof of the van, and we headed back north to a town called, we went back to Catavina, and that's where we spoke to there's a hotel there called La Misión Catavina, and it's the old mission, but I hooked up into their electricity. I asked them if I could, they had a Tesla charger there, which was cool. I was like, well, there's a Tesla charger here.
Yes.
Unless I came and checked it out. I saw the Tesla charger, and I was like, well, they have 240. I can use that for sure. They'll let me. And my van doesn't take Tesla charger, so I had to go back to the breaker and hook up to the breaker. Mm-hmm. And so I connected to 240 at the breaker, and then the van was charging, and then we went to another town called Vicente Guerrero, which was about maybe 100 miles to the north of that. So we got there, and a friend of a friend of a friend, I mean, you know how Mexico works. Friend of a friend of a friend was like, hey, I can help you. And then all of a sudden we're following this guy down a dirt road into his backyard, and he had a bunch of buddies who were welders and stuff, and they kind of like helped us bend everything back into place and try to get it back onto the roof of the van as best as possible. So the array kind of was fixed, like it was fixed-ish. It was
the structure.
You could work the structure, but all the solar arrays were bent and snapped, and there was cracks in them, and
Yeah,
Some of
the
them were
the
really heavily
solar
graded.
cells, they're brittle. So if you bend them too much, they crack and then that's it. They don't work. They kind of work, but they don't really
Like
work.
they're flexible. So like if you flex them slowly, they kind of
Yeah.
work. But what happened is the whole thing just landed, and
Yeah.
everything sort of quickly snapped. So yeah, there
Yeah.
was lots of cracked cells. And so anyway, I was sort of like, I'm just gonna see. Like I have to see before I call this done. I have to
Yeah.
see how. And it was like, it wasn't very much money to get it fixed and stuff. They were very friendly and they helped us out a lot. So we put it all back together. I rewired all the solar panels, and then I like plugged it in. And then Keegan was leaving actually. Keegan was like, "Okay, I'm out. Like I'm done with this freaking adventure. I'm going back to my girlfriend." And so we drove him to the bus station. And when I got back from the bus station, we drove into the lot where because my friend was driving her car. We drove back into the lot, and I looked up, and my solar panels were just in flames. Like
Oh
they
no
just burned.
way.
With all the hot spots, like with the vibrations and stuff, all the plastic had just combusted, and I was like,
Yeah.
God, I can't get a break. Like this is it. And so I had to
Yeah.
break the fire extinguisher out and put it out, and then I just sort of like packed it all away, and just said, okay, I'm going back to Ensenada because I have friends there, and I'm gonna ride this out. I'm gonna see what I can do. I'm gonna call networks and see if I can get some new solar panels, if not a new array and all that sort of stuff. And then about like a month after doing that, I had some sponsors lined up. The coronavirus hit. The
Oh
pandemic was
yeah.
announced, and everybody was like, "No, we're facing a global recession. Like, obviously, a fun project like this is the first thing to go, and just
Yeah.
dead in the water." So basically, since February, March ish, I've just been, working my releasing content, trying to engage people and increase that window and all of that sort of stuff, going through all that avenue. And I've been here since. And recently, a company called Galt Energy approached me and said they'd like to help. They're a solar panel installing company in Monterrey, Nuevo Leon.
Ah,
And
Mexico. Okay.
Mexico, and then SunPower. They co-sponsored me. So SunPower from the USA have an international branch, and they both banded together and co-sponsored me a new set of solar panels. And then through the racing industry, obviously down here it's huge. So there's a lot of like prep shops and stuff, and with lots of cool machining tools and stuff like that. A guy named Hector Ramirez has a company called ORS Racing, and he was like, "Yeah, let's rebuild you a new solar array." So that's what we've been doing the most recent months of the rebuild. So yeah, things are looking good again. But yeah, there was a lot of this year has been not only because of the pandemic, but also because of the prior events, has been kind of a funky year. But you know what? I've been having a lot of fun still, and I still got a
Yeah.
smile on my face. I think that's
There
the
you
ultimate
go. So now
goal.
you have panels, and now you're rebuilding the whole structural thing of the array, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Oh, okay. So you're gonna be up and running pretty soon, as long as you can as soon as you can do the work, kind of thing, or
We're hoping by mid-January. We're hoping by mid-January the thing's going to be running again, which is really good. Um,
and
yeah,
the weird
hopefully.
part is that your bus runs. It's just the solar part of it that is just not running.
Exactly, yeah. There's
Okay.
some things that I want to tackle because of the pandemic. It's kind of like, you can look at it one or two ways. Oh no, like poor us, we're doomed, gloomed, all of that. Or you can be like, all right, well I can just do stuff that I didn't have time to do before. And
Yeah.
that's kind of like where I'm at the moment. I'm like, do I pull that battery pack apart and like make it more efficient? Do I tackle the proprietaries of this van and cut out all of the crap that I don't need? Like I'm starting to think sort of along those ways, especially with the pandemic. It's like, what else am I going to do? I can't cross the borders or anything like that. The journey's not like it's not going to be able to go, but who knows? Maybe
Yeah.
in the next couple of months with the vaccine and all of that sort of stuff, it's going to be up and
Yeah.
running for us.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to tell you the truth, I thought we would be all done and over with this, but it doesn't seem like we
that's
are.
that's what I thought at the start. Like I was here in Ensenada, obviously with the broken panels, And the pandemic hit. My sister called me and was like, "I bought you a plane ticket. Get to LA. You're coming home," kind of thing. And I was just like, "No, I'm not coming home.
You're probably
This thing,
safer down there.
I'm like, this thing's gonna like disappear in a couple of weeks. It's just like any other thing that happens, you know." And she was like, "You're wrong," rah, rah. And I'm like, "No, I'm right. Like, I'm good. Leave me alone." And then I was like the other day, I called her and I was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, you were completely right. I was completely wrong."
Yeah, it's weird. It seems like I don't know. It seems like this year's common flu is it comes with a vengeance. All right, but I think it is going to be like the common flu in the fact that we're all gonna eventually get it. I think we're
Mhm.
just you just gotta be smart about when you let yourself get it because the emergency rooms are overrun over here and it's killing a lot of people. So it's weird. But I would think that down there it would be a little bit different. There's not like here in LA, for example, there's people from all over the world here on a daily basis. So there's no matter where it started in the world, it would end up here really quickly. In Baja California, I don't know. Like
There's
there's
not many people, right?
yeah, I mean there's a lot of Americans I guess that go down there. I don't
They
know if that changed this year because there's the what do they call them, the
snowbird.
snowbirds.
Yeah,
Yes,
snowbird.
I
Yeah,
don't know if that was disrupted this year because of the pandemic.
yeah. I've done a few little trips down Baja, like camping trips, just to like get away from it all, you know. And certainly, like people in those rural areas in this part of the world are that like I remember I forget what town I was in. It was like might have been Mulegé or something like that. Like one of the really touristy Baja spots, you know, with beautiful beaches and beautiful
Uh-huh.
people. And I was there. I was in a grocery store buying aguacates. I don't know, some food, something quick. And I remember walking in, and they were all just like a güero, like a gringo, like he's here, like what?
Oh,
Like,
what? Like
they were very
we
surprised. They were like,
we
"Whoa," you
thought
know,
you were
like,
skipping this year.
yeah,
What? So
yeah, yeah,
so that means it's taking a hit. Like people are not going there. That's normal. Basically, there's not as much
yeah.
tourism.
I definitely, I think that's the case. Yeah, I mean, it's not as if you're not welcome. It's just like people are just being more cautious and all
They're
of that.
surprised to see you.
Yeah, yeah. You're still super welcome. It's not like they were like, "Oh my God, look at this guy with green eyes! Like, get out of here! You're gonna get the coronavirus." They were like, "Oh, whoa! Like, you're either like, you know, adventurous or I don't know, stupid." They were probably thinking that.
You're crazy or you're adventurous. One of the two.
Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh. But yeah,
Wow.
I think there is a lot of people because you know, obviously down here they operate heavily off of tourism. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of people hurting too. You know, there's a lot of financial difficulty going on at the moment, and it's kind of sad. You know, it's affecting us both mentally and health wise, physically. But yeah, also a lot of these businesses who don't really have a lot to begin with are really not doing super well at the moment, which is
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll go away and we can start like feeding some
Yeah.
resources back to
I
these
mean,
people
I
again.
want to travel again. It's like I'm not as adventurous as, someone like you or whatever, but I definitely feel like I've been cooked up in here, like just being able to do nothing.
Maybe you should
Uh,
bring the samba down Baja with me when I get the van back on the road. We can co-charge. You can charge off of my battery pack with me.
yeah, it'd be challenging because there's not a lot of power down there, right? Like yeah, I would have to set up some solar panels, I guess, for mine too.
Yeah,
To be able to do it. Although, look, these guys totally did it. The
the long way up.
the long way up, and so there are charging stations. You're gonna end up probably using the charging stations they set up for
Yeah,
them.
maybe. Well, I try to use only renewable energy. So I spoke to Rivian. I had a conference call with them not long ago, and yeah, they were like, "Oh, we're going to send you the map," and I was like, "Well, that's going to be good, you know, in case the panels go flying off the roof again. Hopefully, we don't build it the same way and we fix those mistakes this time." But well, I fixed my mistakes this time. But if it happens, it's going to be a really good resource to just be like, "Oh, that's the Rivian charger that you and McGregor and Charlie used."
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because some of those places are really remote out there. And so I kind of talked to them, and yeah, in some of the shots you can see that they had like a truck, like a charging truck with a giant generator, and that's how they
Uh-huh.
were, and then you're like, okay, well, I guess that's what you have to do because you're going to Patagonia, it's like through. This is one of the most remote places in the world. Like, what do you
Uh-huh.
expect? No solar panels. You're gonna have to have some other way to charge up there.
Yeah,
But
I think
with you have the solar panels. Maybe that's the thing
it's
that
super
you'll be able to do it.
liberating because even I can even go to places where, say, like gas powered vehicles can't go. Like where yeah, like even in Baja, you stick on the highway, and if you don't fill up at some places, if you don't take every opportunity to fill up the gas,
Yep, you're
you're
in trouble.
going to get stuck. You're going to
You're
have to call some guy to come with a pickup truck full of gas and pay triple the price, could triple the price for your gas. So,
yeah,
uh, yeah, even just in a place like this, it can be difficult. So, and there's so many beautiful things that you can do off of the highway here in Baja. You can drive 20 miles down a dirt road to a secluded beach with some of the best surfing that you'll ever experience on the entire planet. But if
yeah,
you don't have the gas tank to support that, then you can't go. And
yeah.
so that's the beauty about my van. And obviously, it's an electric vehicle, so there's limitations as far as energy goes. But I bring my energy with me, and if it takes me 2 days to drive that 20-mile dirt road
You
because
just
it's
camp an
rough,
extra day.
just camp an extra day, yeah. And I
Yeah,
get to these cool places, and I'm not limited. And while I'm surfing and having fun and camping, guess
yeah,
what? My van's building up its charge again. I'm getting all my energy back, and off I go again. So
yeah.
it's a pretty cool concept. And who knows, maybe like solar power isn't the way to do it moving forward. I don't know. Maybe we find another way to energize these electric vehicles. But at least it's like opening up that conversation. That's kind of like my whole jam with this is just be like, hey, look, like
Yeah, well, it's
bring it
definitely a
with you.
question. Everybody asks us that question. Can you, go on forever on solar, like have a car and you were like, well, on paper it works, but there's not a lot of people that have tried it. You know what I mean? Like,
Uh-huh.
maybe,
Yeah, I think there's limitations too. Like I'm not going to lie. Like it is cumbersome. You're carrying this huge thing on the roof, and you have to be aware of wind and
yeah.
also like sun. If the sun's not there, if it's rainy, I mean, it's not really a problem here in the Californias because it's always sunny. But like,
It is going to
yeah,
be down there in South America.
in South America and Alaska, like. But the thing
Yeah.
is, there's always energy to be had, whether it's like water potential or wind or
Mm.
like there's always a way to sort of to make it work. The idea of like perpetuality and all of that is kind of a little bit wild. So
Yeah.
you get that question. You've probably got it a million times. Why don't you
Yeah.
just put a fan on the front of the vehicle while you're driving?
Yes.
You're like,
Yes.
okay, like, come
Uh,
on, study,
capacitors,
study.
super caps,
Newton,
ultra caps.
Newtonian laws, please. Like, we need to understand
Yeah.
thermodynamics here.
Yes.
But whatever, like the idea of stopping and getting energy while you're stopped is not something that we
It's
can't
not. Yeah.
achieve, evidently. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But
It's just
also,
how feasible it is, how like convenient,
yeah,
how practical it is. That's the question that
absolutely.
you're answering, right? That someone like
Uh-huh.
you in this trip is it's about to answer. It's like, um, there are things that you can play with, like around, like for example, you said that it's ends up being you're in a big rig, right? You're like 15,000 pounds, or it's like that's 3 cars, three
Yeah, yeah,
Teslas. That's
yeah,
how
exactly.
that's what you're pushing around. Can it be done with a lighter vehicle, right? Because obviously, I don't know what's your range with the fully charged battery pack. What did you end up
Uh, we
getting?
never went over like there's some pretty frequently asked questions. That's one of them. What's your range? So with 120 kilowatt hours completely depleted, I can go about 200 miles, 300 kilometers. So
Oh wow, okay.
um, it's quite a long distance,
Right,
but
really? So
also
that's actually
it's
pretty good. Because I was trying to figure out your efficiency, right? So you're saying you can get 200 miles if you go slow,
max,
right? If,
maximum. Yeah, like
if
for
you go,
example, from where you probably test your samba from LA to San Diego, like
yeah,
that road is perfect for testing an electric vehicle and getting some cool figures because it's just flat and it kind of like, especially going from LA to San Diego, I feel like there's just like a constant downgrade. So
Yeah.
like you
Well,
can
not through the 15. Through the 15, it's a downhill going down, but it's uphill coming up.
come back,
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
just like a slightly, there's a few
Like
little
there's a
hills,
few
but
little
nothing
hills,
big.
yeah.
Yeah, nothing
But yeah, like
major.
on that road, I get 200 miles. Like I get
You would
200
get.
miles each. Yeah,
And then what kind of speeds you travel at? Like 50 miles an
yeah,
hour, 60 miles an
50
hour?
miles. Yeah, 50 miles is
50 miles an hour.
max. Um, and yeah, that can kind of be cumbersome too. Like the
Yeah.
thing is, it's
Well, here in
it's
California, it'd be because people are doing 80 miles an hour on the open road.
yeah,
So they're
yeah.
like, "What are you doing, going so slow?" You know?
Yeah, you just stay in your electric vehicle lane. You know, you stay in your bus lane.
Yeah. So 120,000 watt hours, right? So you're getting divided by 200. Let's see this thing. Okay, so you're averaging about 600 watt hours per mile. That's actually pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
Very,
And the
very
thing
good.
is, it's a big van.
Uh huh.
The drag coefficient isn't really great, but that's the thing. That's why it has a limiter in it. That's why you can only go 50 miles an hour. If you go over
Oh,
that
okay.
50-mile-an-hour range, you
It's all
start to
wasted
plow,
energy.
you plow winds. There's all these thresholds that Modec and Navistar International have worked out. Obviously, like this thing was meant to be a delivery van. If you're driving, 80 miles an hour on a highway with this thing, your range is going to plummet. So same thing in the cold and going up and down hills, like it changes dramatically. So there's been times where I've gotten 200 miles max,
Mm-hmm.
but there's also been times where I've gotten less than 120 miles off of 200 kilowatt hours. So it's a huge difference with that weight going up a hill. You
Yeah.
know, you're going to lose that range quickly. So it's pretty good in ideal situations, but then in non-ideal situations, it's terrible. So not like a Tesla where it's good in good situations and it's still pretty good in not pretty good situations. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's yeah. There's things to it.
Yeah, no, I mean it's really good efficiency because my bus averages about 300. And my bus is
Oh
tiny.
really?
It's like a little one,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
but I think I
Uh-huh.
do faster. I never go 50 miles an hour. I usually do 60 or 70. And then sometimes what you try to do, I don't know, like you probably can do this because if you are governed down to 50 miles, um you what is that thing called? Drafting or whatever when you get behind
Behind a semi or something
a
like that.
semi
Yeah.
truck. It
Uh-huh.
makes a huge difference, right? You feel all the wind when you're going alone, and then you get behind a truck and it's just calm, you know.
Yeah. There's all sorts of things you can do for
But
sure.
you have
Yeah.
to keep up with them because they're going fast usually,
Yeah. So
especially
that's the
down there in
thing.
Bajas. Yeah.
Especially up on like the Dalton Highway up in the Arctic, we were
Mm-hmm.
like getting overtaken by semi trucks like on those roads,
Because
and they
they're
were all
going
like, "What the hell are
fast.
you doing up here? This is a trucking road," and they're not stopping for you. So you kind of like just like give them right away. You slow down to 20 miles an hour most of the time to let trucks go because you don't want to get in their way. So
Yeah.
yeah, you
And
kind
you
of are
can't
doing
catch
it.
up to them, right? And you can't go fast enough to stay behind them because it would be great if you could stay behind. Then you could just coast right behind, and then you're saving a ton of energy. It makes a huge difference.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
There was this one time I remember. I've got a really good story. Like we were driving through roadworks. They were doing works on the road, and the flag. It was a long one. Like they were doing it over miles, maybe 2 miles or whatever. Like it was a long. They were shutting down one lane, and we pulled out. We let everyone go first because we knew we were going to get in everybody's way, and then we pulled out over the last guy, and they all took off. And we weren't through the 2 miles by the time they reopened the other side, and cars were coming back before we made it through.
Whoa.
So that's
Uh-huh.
kind of like how slow we're going.
Wow.
Some of these times, yeah. So it can be inconvenient, but you just kind of like make do.
So you can't turn off that system that stops you from going over 50?
Probably. I don't
Oh,
know.
okay, okay.
It's like should we do it or should we just like leave it working? It's not
Well,
broken,
because
so
it
why
would
should
be a good experiment to see, right? Because That's the problem. Like you have to go it all alone. Yeah, you're going slower, so you're staying efficient. But if you could just go
Uh-huh.
a little bit faster, you might be able to gain about the same efficiency while covering more
Uh-huh.
ground by staying. Because that's what I do in mine. Like I just wait around till there's a truck that is not going too fast. Because some of them are like just like if they're empty, they're doing 80 miles
Yeah.
an hour, right? Especially on the open
Uh-huh.
road. But every once in a while, you get one that's heavy and they're not going super fast. They're doing 70, they're doing 65, 70. So then I just
Uh-huh.
get right behind one of those, and then and with my little bus, the difference is huge. Not just trying to save energy, but the fact that my bus rides really rough when with the wind. Like you could hear, it's
Uh-huh.
like a tornado outside when you're doing above 45 miles an hour. It's just, and it's loud and you can't hear the music and it's just, pulling you all over the place. As soon as you get behind a truck, you're like, it's just serene. And the noise level comes down and then your level of power is down, even though you're going faster. And so I'm like, okay, you just got to stay in here. You got to stay alert because, well, you have to stay kind of close, and you play with that distance that you get, and you see
Yeah.
as you start falling behind, you start seeing the draft and the noise levels start coming up, and you're like, oh, I got to creep up a little bit more. Um,
Get back to the zone.
it would be an interesting thing to try that out, but you can if you can't get rid of that limit right on the
So
bus on the.
Michael Bream from EV West, he's ripping his apart, and I'm kind of like waiting to see what he does. I'm waiting. I'm like, we're talking. He's asked me for some tips, and I've tried my best to answer questions and stuff because I own the thing. But
Mhm.
yeah, them. They just like to they mess with everything. It's not really. They've got a shop with people who are super intelligent there that can sort of fix these issues. So he's got a few workarounds at the moment that he's sort of told me about, but I think they're working it out at the moment. And maybe it happens in time, and if it does, then
It
I'll
would be
uh,
great.
I'll try to sort of see what I can
Yeah,
do.
I
Yeah,
didn't know that they had this limitation baked in.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. The
yeah.
the van has like a lot of proprietaries in it that are just ridiculous. Like there's some things that it's like for example, it has a DC brushless motor, but it's coupled with an AC inverter so it can get the regenerative braking. But it just seems like a weird combination. I don't even know how that works, to be honest. Maybe I don't know. It's like
Oh wow.
I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea how
I
that
didn't
even
even
works.
know it had. So it's got a DC motor on it. I didn't know that.
A DC brushless motor, but it has an inverter. So there's all of these changes, like it basically for me, I go from solar panels to charge controllers to my 40 kilowatt hour battery, from my 40 kilowatt hour battery to my 8 kilowatt radiant inverter. From that, I go to 240 AC to my charge control, my EVSE, my juice box charger.
Oh
My
no
juice box
way.
charger, I go from that to my onboard vehicle charger. Then I go from my
Oh.
onboard vehicle charger to my battery, to my battery, to my inverter, to my DC brushless motor. So there's just like 7
Oh
steps.
wow. Yeah.
It's
There's.
just like hurting you. Like that's efficiency just like sucked out.
Yes.
Especially the stuff prior to the proprietaries. That's stuff that I know I can do something with. I can,
Yeah. Having to go through that radiant inverter, you shouldn't have to do that because you could always just see the. You could always match the battery that you added onto the car to the onboard battery, and you just should be
yeah,
able to
yeah.
parallel in there, and then you should have been fine, right? But I don't know why
The,
you guys chose to not do that. Maybe
the
the voltage was different. Maybe I don't know.
yeah, the battery pack voltage is 340 volts. So it's super high, and my secondary pack is 48 volts.
Ah, okay. Oh, and you
I mean,
did that maybe because of the solar charge controllers.
exactly. Basically,
Ah,
we can't go over 150 volts with the charge controllers. Um,
yes.
so I mean, there's lots of ways. There's
You
so
could do
many.
it.
You
You could
could
do it, but
series
it's.
the charge controllers at 150 volts from
Uh-huh.
the panels, and then you got 300 volts. It's not a full charge of the main pack, but at least it's direct, so you're sort of bypassing a lot of.
All kinds of extra equipment, yeah,
But you don't
and
get that.
efficient equipment.
You don't get that last, you know, thousand.
No, and you could do it. Like, there's definitely like if you have a 300 volt pack, you could connect enough panels to go above 300, and then just uh,
Cut off. Uh,
yeah, no, and just like either DC to DC down them to the
uh-huh.
pack, or just let them. I know there are people, there's schemes where yeah, you just let them charge. You don't just want to do it like that because then you don't have no control if it goes above the thing. Well, I guess if your battery reaches above that voltage, then that means you're done. Yeah, you could do it. I know I have a system that a Canadian guy built. It's called Electrodacus, and
Uh-huh.
he basically it's designed for a 24-volt battery system, and all
Uh-huh.
he does is uses the 24-volt solar panels, which go all the way to 40 volts, right? 42 volts or
Uh-huh.
something, and so it's just straight going in there. There's not a lot. There are some MOSFETs on the way just to turn off and on,
Uh-huh.
but mostly they just let the solar panels do their work and just
Uh-huh.
input that solar voltage into the battery pack.
Are they batteries or are they cells? Like, what are they? Because that's the other thing is like balancing cells within the battery and using a BMS and
Yeah, you got
doing
to
it.
use a
Doing
BMS.
it. There was a moment where both of my charge controllers blew up in Northern California. There was a short on the frame. One of the solar panels wires shorted out, and I think another one shorted out. Anyway, there was like a bunch of capacitated energy in the frame, and I was doing some work on there, and I kept getting shocked. I was like, "What's happening here? Like this is crazy."
Oh.
And anyway, I connected everything together, and bang, the lightning arrestor blew up in one of my charge controllers. And I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
okay, there was a short. So I was like, fuck, I destroyed a charge controller. That's crazy. That's like $600 just
Yeah.
gone. And so I tried to fix everything again, and I plugged it all in again, and the other one went and blew up. And I was like, damn it, there's two
Yeah.
lightning arrestors just done, you know? Like, fortunately, I have a good relationship with Outback, and they took
Yeah.
them and them up for me. So it was kind of them to do that.
And the cool
But
thing about those is those are MPPT, right?
yeah, MPPT and
Yeah.
80 amps, like they're FM80. They're big, good
Big.
charge controllers. Very, very good, like household charge. And I've got two of them. So
So the only
they're
thing
like
is that limiting you is that voltage. You can't go higher than that.
higher than, because that's what happened. I got a short and it went over 150 volts and the arrestor just
Ah, I
popped. So
see.
anyway, I
Okay.
had no charge controllers and I basically went direct and I was just freaking out the whole time. I was like, what if I didn't balance my pack correctly? And I have
Well,
like an analog BMS
no, I
system.
don't. Okay, yeah, yeah. So the charge controllers are just chargers. They don't balance your batteries
No, but they kind of like keep the voltage just,
down.
yeah, they
Yeah,
don't
they
go.
regulate it down to not go super high.
Whereas
But
if you
here,
come in, sorry, yeah, you
straight,
go.
yeah. But the
Yeah,
thing is that batteries won't go above the voltage that they're
yeah,
supposed to be until they're fully charged. That's the
uh-huh,
only way you can, like, let's say that you have a, like, if your battery is fully charged, 350 volts or whatever, you can't get it there if the battery's
yeah, yeah,
not is not ready, like, it's not fully charged, right? It's
yeah, yeah,
gonna keep your solar panels down to whatever it is, 300 volts or whatever,
yeah,
until
yeah,
you fill them with electrons, and then eventually they'll go up, and that's when
yeah.
you know that you're supposed to cut it off because the voltage
Flick
is
your
there.
switch off. Yeah, yeah,
Now
uh,
you will give, like, they won't be the most efficient way because, well, one, the panels don't they don't like to be overloaded. Like the
uh-huh,
panels, you can load it, load it, load it, and then the voltage starts going down and down until eventually they give up. Just
yeah,
like all of a sudden, just they give up, and then you're
uh,
not producing anything. So you have to back out a little bit. You have to, like, load them as much as you can, right to the point where they're about to give up, right?
mm-hmm.
And so that's what the MPPT does,
That's right. Yeah, yeah,
right? It maximizes the power point, and it keeps tracking. It's doing that like thousands, I
uh-huh,
don't know, hundreds of times a second or whatever. And so that's what they're
uh-huh,
doing. And so that's why these are really good uh, charge controllers, right? They're
yeah, yeah,
chargers that are designed to load panels to their maximum point right before they decide they don't want to give you more power because they, for some reason, they give up. They're just like, you just load it, and then eventually it's just boom, it just goes
like
open circuit kind of thing.
yeah,
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 and
uh-huh,
you want to be right
yeah,
there. So the other way, the direct way, you won't have that. And so there might be some times where you reach that point where they just give up and they're not producing the max that you can, right? And just
Yeah.
by toning it down a tiny bit, you would gain like 50% more power out of
Yeah.
your solar panels. So that's the reason why you need that advanced system,
Uh,
right?
but the,
But
the the chance of the batteries overcharging is, yeah, it's not great unless I just am just doing something else and I forget about it.
you
And
forget about them, yeah.
yeah,
But then you should have your BMS system step in and charge. So the BMS system is a different system that
yeah,
has
yeah.
also a switch. It's either it could be a mechanical switch like a relay or a
Yeah,
contactor,
I have
or it could be like a
break.
MOSFETs, yeah,
Yeah, I
or
have
a breaker, yeah.
manual breakers. They come into like a 30 amp, like the array's broken down, and they all come into 30 amp breakers. And that's basically what I did when the charge controllers were out. And it
You
was
were
for
just
about
turn them
like
off.
a month. I was like every day I was like watching it. Okay, 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 no more. And I would turn like one on to sort of. I was actually doing like the stepping. I was like turning panels off to sort of
Ah,
slow
I
the
see.
charge at the end so that I could fill the cells completely.
Yeah,
Because you'd see that, you'd turn them off, and when there was no voltage, the batteries would,
yeah.
sag back down. So I was like doing the stage charging manually,
Oh, I see, I see.
which
Wow,
was
so
really
that's
cool.
weird. So you have two battery systems, and one's charging the other battery system, but through a
Yeah,
bunch of stuff steps in the way. Yeah, that's not ideal.
I can
Um,
hold my hand out. You can give me a slap in a second, but yeah,
uh,
I agree. It's just and I think about it all the time. So it's something I really need to. I absolutely know it's not efficient. It was just something that we never had time for to start with in the
yeah,
build. We didn't want to mess with proprietaries, get on the road kind of thing. And it's not until now that obviously my priority is the solar panels because that's the whole point and the whole way I'm going to travel in this thing. But it's not until now that I'm like, hey, maybe there's a couple of months or a couple of weeks I can, because the thing is that the battery's 340 volts. The other thing I can do is I can break series connections and bring the voltage of the battery down to 20 volts. Basically, the cell packs connect
yeah,
down from 340 volts to
yeah.
20 volts.
But then you have a bunch of connectors that you got to do in sequence, and if you forget, boom, everything blows up. And
Yeah, yeah.
I think the best way you should try it, or you could try it, is using a big um, grid tie inverter. So
Okay.
I'll give you an idea. Like, so those little solar charge controllers you have, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Those are small for low voltage battery systems, right? Then there are
Uh-huh.
the solar grid tie. Those are usually they connect all your solar panels. Like, let's say you connect all your solar panels in series, right? And you'll get
Uh-huh.
something around like 600 volts,
Yeah.
right?
I
And so
think it's
then,
a thousand. I think I can get to 1,000 volts.
oh, okay, yeah. So there's some that go that high, but I think the ones that are fairly common are up to 600. So you'd have to do two strings. So half of your solar panels in one string, and then you put two of those in parallel, right? And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
you run those 600 volts of AC, solar AC, into a grid tie inverter, right? And
Okay,
this is that thing.
you do the inversion at the panel kind of thing. You put inverters on the panels. Is that what you're
Yeah, but it's
saying?
this big one. No, it's not. It's the one that goes in your wall. So
Okay.
those are micro inverters, right?
Uh-huh.
Inverters, and those are usually there's two ways to go. They put them up there so that you run AC lines up there, and the cables are smaller, or whatever. But some
Yeah.
bigger installations, they'll run all the DC down to this big grid tie solar
Uh-huh.
inverter, and they go up to like 4 or 5 kilowatts. All right,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they're kind of cheap,
I've
and so
because
then what you
I've got
what
an Outback Radiant inverter. It's grid tied. It's 8 kilowatts. It's an 8 kilowatt inverter. I'm wondering if I already have that. Like,
No, because that one's made. I have three of those.
oh, you've
And
got them. Okay.
those are for low voltage batteries. Those are
Okay.
not for solar. So the other
Sure.
ones are the input. The DC inputs are solar panels, up to
Okay. Okay.
600, right? And
Uh-huh.
so what they do is they convert 600 DC volts down to, well, but that's the thing. They convert it down to grid to AC, to 20,
Oh,
right?
okay.
And then you can go straight into your um,
PVSE system.
to your radiant, yeah,
Yeah.
right, or no, 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 to the EVSE, yeah, to the
Just
EVSE,
straight
which
to
is the
the
charger.
yeah. So you still have a couple of the proprietary steps and all of that sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
but I think you get rid of the low voltage
Yeah, yeah,
system, which is the most inefficient one that you have right now, right?
absolutely.
Um, so that's one way to do it, and I think that would be kind of easy. You would need to create your own grid because these are grid tie inverters, and they're
Yeah, yeah,
designed so that whenever there's no power, then they shut down. But all you need is basically have that radiant turn on and
yeah, yeah.
give 240 volts or whatever, and then the
Uh,
grid tie will just be like, oh, there's the grid, okay, boom, and it'll match it. It'll push all their power in there,
okay.
and that's a
Yeah.
much more robust, because you could have up to 6 kilowatt charging
Uh-huh.
from the
Yeah,
solar
yeah.
panels, right? I don't know how much solar panels do you have in kilowatt? Like how big is your array?
So with the new panels, it's around about 7,300.
Oh wow, that's a huge system. That's what a regular house would have,
Uh-huh.
usually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, with 120 kilowatt hours of batteries, right? Like you've got to. It's not big enough for that. For
it's
that, like
not
you
big
said
enough.
at the start of this talk, you were like, "That's a huge battery." Like everybody needs to understand how big this thing is. It's massive. So that's
Yeah,
why it takes 2.5 days to charge the vehicle off of what I've got. Still, well, more, but maximum on paper, two and a
yeah,
half, 20 hours of sunlight, basically, or whatever it is. So,
yeah.
um, yeah,
Unless you're in the summer and you get, because in some places at summer you get like 9 hours of solar, right?
good, good,
Of
perfect
good
solar.
good sunlight, yeah. But yeah, okay, so definitely, so you're 7 kilowatt. Yeah, so you need big systems. That's why you're using two of those
Uh-huh.
solar
Yeah, like
charge
I had to,
controllers, right?
had to break the array in half, to fit it all into the charge controller because it's got an amp limit, and you
Hmm.
go over that amp limit, you just no watt limit. Sorry, it's 4,000 watts each of them can take, I guess. So
Okay, so you got
like
8 kilowatt,
yeah,
but you
eight
wow, you're
kilowatts.
almost maxing them.
Well, I mean, wait, 8 kilowatts nominal too. So I think the
Yeah.
highest I ever saw with that old array, the old array was 9,000 watts. And the
Ah,
panels aren't as good as the panels that I got now. The panels I got now, I'm really interested to see what I can get up to with the new ones because they're the new. They've got the Maxion second generation cells in them. They're straight out of SunPower, so they're very high quality panels. Not
okay.
saying the last ones weren't, but they obviously not as good quality. So the maximum
Yeah.
I saw with the last one was 7,200 watts, I
Oh
think it
wow.
was,
Yeah.
which is
Okay.
pretty close to the 7.9 or whatever it was. But that
Yeah.
was in one specific situation up in the mountains here in Baja California. So the air was thinner. It's perfect. The temperature was in winter, so the temperature was cool. The panels were staying cool and all of that sort of stuff. So it was like
Hmm.
all the conditions to get perfect,
Perfect.
close to nominal watt, but wasn't, you never get an 8,000 watt system. You never get 8,000 watts. So with the new ones, I'm really excited to see because it's like 7,300 watts, and I'm wondering like how much lower it's going to go. But obviously
Hmm.
with all the better panels and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, but yeah, it'll all
Yeah.
fit within the charge controllers. And I don't know. I have to really like. I never even thought about the way that you just said. So I appreciate you telling me. Like that's super helpful. So thank you. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
would experiment with that just to see because those are kind of cheap and you can get them. I've been trying to use them to do. Here's the thing: we got a few years ago. We got like just truckloads and truckloads of them, and
uh-huh.
they were like for some reason they didn't meet some specs or they changed to the new thing or whatever. So they were available, and they're these big inverters, and we're like, what do we do with them? And yeah, you can use them as is, but I'm like, you could also just put batteries on them,
Uh-huh.
like on as the input, 600 volts of batteries. Like, why do we need to have solar panels? Like, we could just build a 200 volt battery connected there, and then you power your house with that. And
Uh-huh.
so I thought, like, that's one way that we can use them. They're cheap, and you can have battery backup at home, right? Or you can have a like something that gives you like close to net zero if you that's what you want to do.
Uh-huh.
And so we
Yeah.
sold tons of them. I mean, I want to say hundreds of them. And I just found out that they're coming back again. There's one of our partners that deals with that stuff still has like pallets in their warehouse. And I thought, you still have some? I'm like, what are they doing there? Like, we sold out and we thought there was no more. So now I've been thinking about those. I'm like, oh yeah, we gotta be able to use those again. So they might be available. And by the way, those were selling for like $150, $200 or something
Oh
for
no way.
like
That's
four
that's
kilowatt.
Yeah.
inverters, and so we're like, what? That's crazy.
Uh-huh.
So that might be a thing that I can hook you up with one of those because I have one somewhere. I give you that one. I don't need it. And there's more coming in the future, even if you were to like burn one up or something, or you might
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to get an extra one just to carry. Do you carry spares? Like some of these parts are, you have some spares with you?
I have a spare EVSC. I
Okay,
have,
yeah, yeah.
I have a new because NLX, the company who makes them, the juice boxes, gave me a charger just to
Oh
sort of.
yeah, yeah.
So I have a spare one of them, but I mean like for inverters like the Radian, when I bought that, I think it was like five and a half, $6,000. So like it's not something I really
So
keep
guess
around.
what? We also got like pallets and pallets of those,
Oh really?
and we sold them for $1,200.
Oh no.
I think we sold like a lot of them
How
for
funny
twelve
is
hundred
that?
bucks.
You hear that and you're like, well, there's a bunch of budget that I could have saved, but whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah. No,
happened.
but you need also like ours didn't come with like
Warranty.
warranty. Yeah, I mean it is what you got. So a lot of people what they did is buy two, and they would
Uh-huh.
set one aside and they install another one. They're like, hey, whenever it breaks down, I mean, I bought it for less than half the price, so I just put the other one in there, right?
Yeah, yeah. If
Yeah,
something happens, it happens. Yeah. Well, that's the
yeah,
other thing. I built the van mostly in a front yard of a friend's house, so I wasn't too fancy. If that opportunity came along without the warranty, I would have said, well, if it breaks down in Alaska, it's just going to be an adventure to try and get a new one to me.
yeah, yeah. And these are so expensive. I know people don't believe me when I remember when I put the post up there. It's like, hey, these sell for $5,000, but we're selling for $1,200, and they're like, come on. I'm like, go look at them at Amazon. They're this
It's
top of the
true.
line.
Yeah, he's not lying, everyone. If I saw it, I would have jaw dropped. I would have been like, okay, give me 10.
Yeah, and they keep trickling in. Right now, I kept three to myself because
Okay.
I'm like, wow, all this cool stuff comes through me, right? And I sell it or whatever. But I'm like, I gotta keep some of this stuff. Like, there's no way like everyone else is having fun using equipment. I'm like, so I kept three of those and I have them there. And I'm like, I don't know. One day I don't even own my own home yet, so it's like I don't have nowhere to install them, kind of thing, right? So I'm
I
like,
think I remember watching one. I've watched your videos for a long time, Jay. Actually, it's like it's funny because I remember in Australia when I was living in Australia. It might have been like 5 years ago. How long have you
wow.
been doing YouTube for?
Yeah,
Maybe about.
I've been at it for a long time. Yeah,
I think I
five,
can
five.
remember watching you. You were installing your rollout panels once. I don't know how long
Oh
ago,
yeah, uh huh.
but
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember
yeah.
you talking about you not owning a house, and I was like,
I
I
had to
remember.
take those down. I kept those up for like 2.5 years.
Uh huh.
Basically, they paid for themselves and they made me a little bit of money.
Uh
But then
huh.
I thought I got to take these out because one day the owner is gonna show up and be like, "What the hell are you doing?" So I was like, I got to take them off, and I had every intention of replacing them with new ones. But I'm
Uh-huh.
like, I just need to just buy a house and do it properly. So right now I don't have solar panels at home. It's weird,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Well, that was the same for me. I was like, well, I owned my house at the time, and I was like, why don't I have solar panels? Like Jayu's over there just messing around with a house that it doesn't even belong to him. Like, what's wrong with me? And then I moved to Canada and I didn't own a house, so it was all good. But I kind
there
of got
you
away.
go.
I was like, rather than installing solar panels, I'm just going to move countries.
Yeah. But now you
Yeah,
have your solar panels. Now you have
I do.
you have a full system. It's like a house system that you have on wheels.
It's an off-grid charging electric vehicle charging system. Yeah, that's the cool thing about this system too. That's an advantage. Is say like someone like you is like, hey Joel, where are you? I need to get a charge, or I can come. You like a friend with a Tesla can come camping with me, and I can charge them up while I'm charging. At the same time,
Yeah.
it's a pretty cool thing to have. So yeah, there's lots of different things that are cool about it, but yeah, obviously efficiency for my trip is number one priority. So I do need to sort of look at that a little bit more. But that is one of the cool things, and I could keep that system as that as well, and as a backup power as well to
Yeah.
charge the van. But yeah,
Yeah, did you ever think about those roll up ones because they're not the most efficient
yeah, yeah,
and they take room, but I'm like you could carry them in boxes and then just wherever you park you're like, "Oh, let me lay them out."
no,
Lay
yeah,
them out, lay them out, connect them, then put another string. I thought like that would be one way. Like if you're out in the desert, you could just lay them all out there and the wind comes, they roll them up or whatever. Like I don't know, it's like I thought
they've got
about it
little
like
little grommets in the corner you can put a little tent peg into. You
You
know,
can put a
like
tent. Yeah, I thought
yes.
about that. It's like it would work.
Uh-huh.
It would just be a bit of work to get out and
Uh-huh.
roll them
You
out
know
and
what though? I think
connect them.
like as far as effort goes, like I timed at the very end. I was in Ventura. I was in Ventura, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna time how long it takes me to set this freaking van up because I do it every day. Like sometimes I do it twice a day, and I'm like, this takes forever. And I timed it, and it was about 20 minutes, half an hour by myself to set the whole array up. And then you've got to track it all day and all that, so it takes some attention. But I couldn't imagine setting those roll if you had the space. It wouldn't take. It would take the same amount of time, maybe a little bit longer or whatever. It wouldn't take that much effort. It's about the same.
Hmm.
It might. The only thing is they're not as efficient.
They're
You
not
know,
as efficient.
you go
But
to the thin cell technology because that's what they are.
yeah,
That's like the least efficient, then flex, and then glass. So
yeah,
that was the other thing with me. I was talking to a guy from Europe. This was before SunPower agreed to sponsor me, and I was talking to a guy from Europe, and he had a company who was doing that, and he was like, "Oh, come on, like we can do something together." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know how, feasible this is, sort of thing." And they were really high quality for what they were for the thin cell technology. But ultimately, I was like, no, like, well, then SunPower came along, and obviously, I was like, okay, I'm gonna stick with these. They're better, more efficient, more suitable for my situation. But yeah, I did. I
yeah.
thought about it. I was like, yeah,
You know what you would gain from it? Like the thing that I noticed with those, because I had two types, right? I had the same type that you have,
uh, uh,
and then I have these roll up ones. And
uh,
yeah, they're less efficient. But here's the thing, like the other ones are super directional. Like what you
uh,
have is very directional. Like they make a lot of power when the sun's right there, like in
uh,
front of them. But as soon as
uh,
you add a little bit of angle, then this deficiency just drops off. With the
okay.
roll up ones, it's not as drastic because they have that so the in order to have that flexible thing in front of the panel, it's kind of a diffuser. So what it does is it grabs light from every direction and directs it there. So when the
Yeah.
sun is at a high angle, they start producing, and then like the difference between that high angle to like perfectly align, it's
Uh-huh.
not that much of a difference. And then also
Uh-huh.
at the very end when the sun's going down, it doesn't
Uh-huh.
it doesn't like there's not as drastic. And so
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like it would
Yeah.
it would work so that you don't have to go out and try to keep tracking it. Like
Uh-huh.
those would I think you would benefit from just having a thing that's facing up,
Just
and no matter what the sun is coming in, it gets
uh-huh.
in, right? So
Yeah.
they
I mean,
probably average it would be maybe about the same if you're incapable of actually trying to like
yeah.
you know
Definitely, yeah. I mean, if I was incapable of tracking, I think I would just stick with really high powered panels, like the 400-watt sun power glass cells. And I'll just have
yeah
heavier panels, but less of them, sort of
less on
thing.
them and facing up.
Because that's obviously like the best ish case scenario. But I wonder, like,
But no, but
obviously,
I
like you're
think
saying,
you would fare you
better
would
with
do
the,
less
yeah,
because it would only create those 400
uh-huh.
watts when the sun was like right there to
Yeah.
right there,
You still
right?
need that angle, right? You still
Yeah,
need that
as soon
angle.
as it's like a little bit more angle, then you're like not producing as much, even
Uh-huh.
less than
Yeah,
the roll up ones.
good point. Someone did bring that up with me actually at some point in time, and I thought about it, but I don't know. I think there's something quite attractive about having that array that just like you know
Yeah,
like it's kind of
yeah,
like a transformer. Yeah, yeah.
when it doesn't fly away.
But certainly like for yeah, exactly when it doesn't
When
fly
it
away.
doesn't fly away when you're on the road. Yeah.
Too soon, Jehu. No, joking. um, the certainly for like a vehicle like yours where it's not a full time solar
Yeah.
electric, you could
Yeah.
chuck 5 of them in a thing and you're camping with your family or whatever. It's
Yeah, because
good.
they literally roll up in these, like the ones I had at home. I took them
Yeah.
all, rolled them back in the boxes, and they're like 2 boxes in my garage right now. And I'm
How
like,
many
oh.
how many watts was one of those rolls? I can't
So
remember.
they were 132, I think, but I never got that. I think I got 100 watts, like maximum or something.
For a
So
whole
a whole roll, yeah, and they're kind of long. They're like
yeah,
1 foot by 20 foot long or something. They're
yeah,
big.
right. But it was only 100 watts.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
hard.
at the end of the day, I would get like 600 watt hours, I think, off each. So then I
Uh-huh.
would have to. I had 10 of them at home.
Uh-huh.
So I wasn't doing, I was doing whatever, 6 kilowatts maybe
Yeah, yeah.
in the
Okay.
summer,
But
right?
that's kind of good, like in my van. Well, it's my van, and I do live quite low energy. I use 4 kilowatt hours a day, so for
I
for,
see.
for living off of,
Oh,
and
I see.
your house doesn't move if you're conservative enough. You're not putting
Yeah,
your AC on and stuff like that. You could probably get away with it, ish, maybe.
yeah. Well,
Uh-huh.
I know because of the prices of electricity here in California, they were more than paying for themselves after like 15 months or something,
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
right? Because each kilowatt here is like 50 cents during the day.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
I have my parents live at home with me, so they're always at home using energy. So every kilowatt hour that these panels are producing, I'm saving 50 cents. So
You're
that's why
offset.
I'm like, holy crap, 15 months they're paid for. Now they're making me money.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
I
yeah.
wish I could have
Totally.
kept them on, but
People need to sort of think about it that way, right? Like it's sort of like the upfront cost, and yeah, you can do it. You
yeah,
can slowly
yeah.
but surely make money back.
How much was your investment in this rig that you have? I mean, it's
So
quite a bit, right?
yeah, it was all up about $50,000, like completely built, which is quite a lot. But if you think about, like a Sprinter, a diesel powered Sprinter, 4-wheel drive Sprinter van, those things are 120, 150 grand, So it's
Yes.
less than one of those, and I don't pay for fuel. I don't pay for
And you
gas.
don't pay
So
for fuel. Yeah.
even if I was to plug in with the grid, it's
Yeah. It's cheap.
it's way cheaper, way,
For
way, way.
a few bucks, you can charge it all the way, right? Yeah.
Stop at a campground. You're going to stop at a campground usually anyway. If you're in an RV that nice, you pay
Yeah.
$20 for the camp fee. Use the 50 amp plug, and you're
And
good.
charge.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a lot, and I guess like the barrier to entry is high for people generally.
Yeah.
Lots of van lifers don't have that kind of money, but I did. I had it lying around, not lying around. I had it available, so I decided I wanted to try something and do it. So for me, it was like it still is. It's worth it. But obviously, when the panels came flying off the roof, I didn't have money to repair it, so I'm broke now.
Yeah.
I've got a van that kind of works. I think
But it doesn't work without having to plug it in.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Uh-huh.
then you need it to be able to kind of work without plugging in where you're going.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It
Yeah.
has to. It has to have the solar to it, otherwise it just won't.
Yeah. Because you don't have the team behind you with the
With
generator.
the Rivian and the generator, and
Yes.
so many people say that to me. Why don't you get a generator on the back of the thing? And I'm like, that's kind of like obsolete to the
I'm
purpose of.
like, I could just get a diesel truck and just
Yeah,
drive down
yeah.
there. Yeah, I
I,
mean that
I guess it's kind of like hybrid. Like
it would be.
I think ultimately you would use less energy,
I
but
don't think so.
you don't
Well,
think so?
I think you would use less energy because your car is way more efficient, super efficient
Yeah.
compared to
Uh-huh.
gasoline combustion. But you would probably not put less emissions out because those generators, the small ones and the little big ones, those are terribly uh, inefficient, and also they're they the emissions they produce, they're super dirty, and they're
Yeah, yeah.
kind of not regulated, which is
No.
crazy, right? Because there's a tiny little motor or whatever that people run every once in a while, but
And noisy too.
they're
Like
noisy.
my solar panels don't make them. I mean, the fans and they click on after when they get to a certain temperature, it makes that buzz. But a generator
Yeah,
while you're sleeping or whatever, like that's just we
yeah,
go to a campground and someone's got their generator and it's always like, can you turn that off? Like
yeah,
we're trying to listen to coyotes. Like
yes, yeah. There's
yeah,
nothing.
yeah.
When I went to Puerto Rico after that storm.
Mhm.
Everybody's running on generators, and it was so terrible. It was loud, noisy, and it stunk. It's just
Thinking,
like those fumes. You're just like, oh my god, like get out of here. We literally went through San Juan, and that's a beautiful town, with the cobblestones and stuff. And every other shop, brrr, you'd hear and then they
yeah,
would.
how devastating. Actually, when you did that stuff, I was watching those videos and stuff. I was like, that's awesome. Like, good, thank you for doing that, I guess, on behalf of everybody in the world. That's awesome. But also, like, I was thinking about my project and how, if the government had a bunch of these vehicles and something like that happens, just roll these vehicles in there and they can power grids. They can put energy into grids, and just like kind of what you were doing with the little energy pack suppliers and stuff like that. But like, turn it up, scale it up, put these things on wheels, send them down there on a cargo ship, and everybody's got energy. They have energy to get their energy back, and it's clean energy, and it's healthy for them. And the environment.
It's weird that like FEMA doesn't have portable power systems that are based on batteries, right? And solar panels.
They don't have to be RVs either, they can just be full of batteries. Like this thing can just be literally full of batteries and solar panels. And
you can deploy those there, and they're kind of self-sufficient. If it takes 6 months for the local grid to stay up, for that, then the system will stay producing energy.
It's disaster relief, and then the government takes them back and then deploys them elsewhere. They might use them for some function that they have to have somewhere where there's no energy. I don't know. Like, there's just a million uses for them. It's crazy. I would have loved to have been able to take my van down there and show that to people, because I don't know. It's not as if this is anything special. It is in a way, because no one's done it. Well, not many people have done it before, but how my van works. You've never touched it. You've never laid hands on it. There's a lot of people watching who know how my van works. It's just a matter of seeing it in action, or people who don't know seeing it in action, people with power or money or whatever, to see it in action and see what it can be used for. For them to be
it's just execution. It's missing. There's there's no magic in this technology. It's it's been around forever. It's tested. It works. It's just no one's doing it for some reason. It's weird.
And sad too. It's sad, like you said, walking through San Juan and smelling all those fumes, and for months. And I'm sure it's even still there's probably still people using.
People in the rural areas, they never got power back. It's a super dysfunctional island, and they had to. I think it was a great thing. When I went over there, I walked out of there saying this is a bad thing that happened, but this is an opportunity to jumpstart the future. The microgrids. It's nowhere else people have the initiative, the willpower to get this thing as here. Now we need it. It's you don't have no power unless you start this new way of doing power, right? And so I thought it's a great thing, something positive that came out of that. It's that.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. There's a good message out of it. There has to be some sort of a silver lining, but unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it happened all too much. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of sad. It's what do we have to do? What do we have to do to make people sort of make that connection?
I think it's happening. I mean, it will happen. Look at there's a bunch of power stations, or there's a bunch of charging stations down in Baja now, or not in Baja, in South America. Right, slowly starting here and there, right? Some of the islands are starting to use batteries. I talk to people every day that are setting up batteries in their homes for off-grid or grid-tie systems, So it's starting to happen. It's just not fast enough. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of people, And,
maybe it's our own minds. We're in the thick of it, really. So we see both the positive side, like you said. You see all the people setting up batteries, but we also see the negative side, because we know the potential. We know how simple it is to do this sort of stuff too. So, you are right. It
needs to happen faster. It does, definitely, but it's happening. I know. I'm creating a whole business out of it. I literally was broke. 5 years ago I was broke. I didn't know. I was just struggling. Now I'm I have a warehouse full of batteries. It's crazy, and I'm shipping them out every day to people that are setting it up.
You were broke, so you started a YouTube channel.
Yeah, basically, I had nothing to lose. So I'm my brother came once and he told me, hey, there's these people that are making videos every day, and they're making tons of money. And I thought, you're crazy. First of all, you can't make a video every day. And how are you going to make money? Like, who's paying you money? And I thought, like, no. So then I thought, like, I got nothing else. My business was failing at that time. It was Jack 35, right?
Uh-huh.
My camera business. So
Uh-huh.
I was like, well, let's give it a shot. Let's see if we can do this. So then I started making videos every day, and I started playing. And then I thought, like, oh, I want my bus to be electric, right? And so I don't have money to buy batteries, so I got to scrounge and got to figure out how to reuse and harvest these
Uh,
batteries out of laptop cells, right? Out of laptop batteries. And that just started this whole thing. Here we are 5 years later, not without a lot of struggle and a lot of work, but finally I hit critical mass and now I'm making money, you know?
you feel good about it all, right? Though, like it's
Yeah, I think it's very positive. Like it hits all the little marks, checks all the check marks, right? Like I'm doing something good for the environment, right? Because I'm keeping trash from going into landfills or being destroyed, right? Because these batteries, obviously, they're not dead. There's some usefulness to them still, so they should not be recycled yet.
uh-huh.
Um, it's making jobs here in the United States because for the longest time these batteries were going back to China. And then
Hmm.
China would take them and process them, break them apart, relabel them, repackage them, send them right back to us, and we would buy them again. Right. So now all that work of salvaging and keeping all that value of those products is staying here in the United States because
Uh-huh.
now we're intercepting them. We're like, nope, they're not going to China. I'm gonna fill my warehouse full of them, and then I'm gonna make videos and I'm gonna sell them here. They're already here in the United States, so there's no waste of them being shipped halfway around the world to China and then right back to us again. Imagine all that inefficiency and all the pollution that happens, right? And the carbon footprint that happens uh, traveling through the seas, all these.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's tons, millions and tons of this cargo that was doing this, right? I'm doing
Uh-huh.
a tiny portion, right? Like one little warehouse. But there's not like me, now there's like another 10 guys in the United States that are doing this.
Yeah.
And I'm about probably the smallest one of them. Like there are the people that I buy the batteries from. They have warehouses, 10 times bigger than me, and they're dealing on all kinds of batteries, and they're finding ways to keep them here and sell them here, right? And so
Uh-huh.
there's a lot of things that are happening. Like America has shipped like jobs forever for decades abroad, and now
Mm.
for the first time, I think we're bringing them back,
You're trying
right?
to get them back in, yeah.
Yeah, and the DIY thing, I think it's up on the up, right? So
Hmm.
and so more and more people are realizing that they could build something. They could design a thing and build a product that will help them,
Yeah.
take. And then the whole energy independence thing, that's a good thing.
Uh-huh.
Like these companies they're terrible. I just saw have you seen that documentary? It's called not Pleasure. What is it? Paradise.
I
It's
like the
about
fire,
yeah,
about the fire. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
One of my good friends in Northern California, her family was in that fire. We watched it together, like when it came out. It was very like, I was like looking at her, and it was very,
Oh, so you've seen that documentary?
I've seen it. Yeah. It was
Oh
very
wow.
like, ooh, intense, especially
Yes.
some of the scenes. And it's like, whoa, like this is
The
real.
the beginning sequence is crazy. I mean, it's like a movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not. It's like
It's real.
cell phone footage and stuff. And you're
Yeah.
like, it's like hell on
It's like
earth.
Blair Witch Project sort of film style, but actual real, like real,
Yeah, real
real stuff.
destruction. And then
Uh-huh.
when you learn the whole thing, that it's like, yeah, it's this company PG&E just it's prioritizing profits over safety.
Yeah, yeah.
And they kill 85 people. And yeah, it cost them $13 billion, but that town's never coming back, right? And
Gone.
so that's what's happening right now. It's like you got to take control of your own energy. Like you can't let these companies just do whatever they want, right? And so now they're turning off whenever there's like any risk of anything, they just turn the
Yeah.
power off. Like
The road.
this year, the last couple of months, we've had like 2 days where we have no power in
It's
California.
it's insane. I remember I was in California last year, and I was just like, "What's happening? Like, this is crazy. This is wild. Like, all because they can't allocate resources to make their lines safe, or it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's
They're like,
and
we're not gonna deliver power. I was like,
yeah,
really?
it kind of makes you look at even bigger, broader pictures like privatization of essential resources and
Yeah.
removing competition for energy providers. And yeah, I think that's cool. Like, I think it's a very entrepreneurial place, and people are thinking more about
Yeah.
taking the energy back into their own hands and being
Yeah.
their own energy provider, but not even their own energy provider, but salespeople like you yourself. Like,
Yeah.
you worked out with your roll out solar panels on your rental house. Like, you figured out that
You could
you
do
could
it.
take it, but also
It's the
make
thing
money.
is California is the land of rules and regulations, right?
Uh-huh.
And people need to understand that just because it's a rule or a regulation doesn't mean it's good. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah,
not just because
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
law doesn't mean it's good. There's a lot of bad laws out there that are to prevent you from doing things that are good for you. And so,
Uh-huh.
it's like I know there are a lot of people don't see as a positive thing to not have that reverence to law, right? But I
Uh-huh.
never came from that. Like, if you look at my life, I'm an illegal alien in the United States, right? I came here legally. So, like, I would be down there. Maybe I would be dead. Maybe I would be poor. Who knows what my life would have been had I not come into the United States, right? So I broke a
Yeah.
law, and I'm like, I should probably feel ashamed, but I don't, because I'm like, this country, it's a country of immigrants, and yet the immigration laws are so crazy. They're trying to keep people out. And I'm like, this is the last country that should try to be keeping
Uh-huh.
people out, right? So I'm like, just because you have the laws in place, enough people have said yes, we need to keep people from coming into the country. I don't think that's
Yeah,
a good
yeah.
thing. I don't agree with it, and like, I don't belong here, but I'm here, deal with it, kind of thing. It's like,
Yeah.
and
I like that. I think it's awesome. And that's the thing. And the USA, especially like this region of the Americas that border Tijuana and the United States. Obviously, it's a huge, super hot topic, and everyone sort of
yeah,
around the world knows about that. But we sort of tend to only look at that example. We don't look at other countries. For example, the country I'm from has some very disgusting immigration laws. We have a very low population with a lot of land, a lot
yeah,
of resources, a lot of opportunity for immigrants to come and make the country better, first of all, but also just like to have a better life. They're coming from places where they're dodging bullets and
yeah,
living for 50 cents a day.
yeah,
And we're like, no, stay away. We're full. We're actually not full. We're like one of the least full countries on the planet. And yet,
yeah,
we still have these disgusting laws preventing people from
yeah.
coming in. So
I
like
think
we
it's
have a lot of immigration from the Middle East,
yeah,
and they come on, but they load up on boats, and some of the boats just sink in the middle of the ocean with hundreds and hundreds of people on them. And
yeah,
recently, with a conservative government, they brought in laws where they were legally allowed to drain the boat of enough fuel so that they couldn't make it to Australia. If they caught them in the sea, they could only make it back to where they came from.
oh
You know,
wow,
like
yeah,
that's humanitarian stuff.
yeah,
Like I mean, there's examples of that here too on the border with
yeah,
racial
yeah.
families and
The U.S. has this thing where they pressure Mexico into preventing people coming from South America.
yeah, yeah,
So they basically say, hey, they're coming through your country. They better not make it to our borders, because once they come to our borders, there are laws that you're supposed to give them political asylum, right? If their lives are in
yeah,
danger and stuff. But here's the thing: how it's illegal. Like, you shouldn't try to prevent these people that legally, genuinely need asylum, right? By
uh-huh.
pressuring your next door neighbor country, and that's happening. And no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to hear, because like, unless you're like me that understands that it's like there's opportunity in this country and we want to come in, and this is a country of immigrants. But people forget that, once they're
Yeah.
here, and they're and there are issues, and it's hard. I know, there are issues here in the States that we have to deal with, and maybe they would be compounded by bringing more people. It's not easy, but they should not shut down the borders. Like, this is a place where you know
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, look at the agriculture industry in California, especially around the border. Like,
it wouldn't
where do
survive
you,
without immigration.
where do you think your food comes from, people? Like, come on.
Who do you think is
Why do,
harvesting your fields?
why do you think they put that law in place as soon as the global pandemic. If you work in the agriculture industry, you're allowed to cross the border. It's like if you're allowed to feed us,
Yeah.
you can cross the border.
Yeah.
Like, are you what? If you
Yeah.
can recognize that and make a law around it, like, come on, like,
Yeah.
wake up, America, realize some stuff here.
Yeah. So that's the background that I come from, right? I don't have this reverence to law because I break it. I broke it most of my life, Not because I'm evil, not because I want to. It's just because I want to exist like everyone else, right? So it's a weird thing. And then like these solar things, like these laws against putting batteries in the thing. People ask me all the time, and I'm like, it's up to you. It's a very like personal decision how many of these regulations and laws you want to strictly follow. I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to tell you. I mean, I'm not ashamed to say like I play around with the lines, right? In the gray areas. I'm not afraid to do that, right? Like I've made videos about being illegal. I'm no longer an illegal person, but I still feel like I'm illegal because I'm the same guy. What's changed? Nothing. It's just a piece of paper that someone said, okay, now you're allowed to be here, right? So that's why I laugh at that, when they're like, no, that's not how you do that thing. And everything, even creating cars, starting up a business, I didn't do it the way that people do it or the way that you properly are supposed to do it because I'm an improper person, like I shouldn't have been here. I never went to school, so I don't know how to, start a venture and, get venture capitalists to give me money or I don't know any of that stuff. So I'm going to figure out my way of doing things.
Yeah. That's really cool. It's very, very awesome. I love that journey. That's a cool way to look at it.
All right, time to pay the bills. This podcast is sponsored by Jack35. They are giving us giveaway prizes. Last week's winner is, if you want to enter to win today, the winner will be announced in next week's podcast. All you have to do is comment and like this video. Good luck.
One thing I obviously want to touch on through this journey is because I'm traveling through these parts of the world where there's low socioeconomics is that social disparity that exists on our planet. And also just like even spending just a little bit of time here in Mexico, and I have lots of Mexican friends now, and not all of them, but there's a lot of this glass ceiling complex down here where you've been given this image of yourself your whole life. I'm Australian. I'm a white Australian, green eyes, blonde hair. Like if there's anyone who can look at themselves and be like, oh, I can make money and rah, 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 it's me. So like I understand that. There's a lot of people here who have been told their whole life that they're poor, they're from a fucked up country, all of these things, and it makes them look up and they can see the stars and all of that, but there's a glass ceiling that's preventing them from exiting the building. Yeah. And like I'm in it as this privileged person, as this person who has had access to a lot of stuff his whole life. I mean, there's also individuality and all of that too. So I'm not completely like removing myself from struggle and pain and all of these things that everyone experiences. But in when we're talking about these sorts of things and broad generalizations, that's something I want to highlight. That's something I want to talk about. I want to highlight to people. And your story, fucking exactly it. It's like, what would you do where would you be if you didn't break that law? Would you still be in your glass box? Would you still be there? Maybe.
Probably. Yeah, because I wasn't allowed to go to school in my country, right? So I had to come to another country legally to go. So I mean, I was just that's what I was trying to do, and I successfully did it. But I kind of understand that not everyone can do it, right? You kind of see it because you're down there, and you see that people are just...
There's just too many people on this planet with not enough resources, and there's a lot of people there's a few people on this planet who have all of the resources.
Yeah, when you look at this, I think most Americans don't see themselves as the 1%ers of the world.
Yeah.
But that's what we are.
I got called out on it once. That someone said, "You're wealthy," and I was like, "I'm not well. I've maybe $1,000 in my bank, something like I don't have." I have like maybe my van's worth money and all this. It's I'm good. I'm not dying, but I'm not wealthy. Come on, get out of it. And they were like, all right, let's plug everything. There's a I forget what the website is, but there's a website online where you can plug your net worth with your assets and all of that into the computer.
Oh, really? Okay.
It ranks you on where you sit as far as like global wealth goes, just wealth, not like
Yeah.
well-being. And I was up, I think, in the top 4%, 5%
Yeah.
of the world. And
Yeah.
I was like, like, are you serious? I felt so ignorant. Here
Yeah.
I am thinking that and I am not wealthy compared to like my friends in Canada and Australia and in the USA. I have lots of
Yeah.
friends in those parts of the world, and I'm not wealthy, you know. So I could imagine them being up in the 3% area, and then
Yeah.
imagine the 1%. Like,
Yeah.
it's
I
just,
think the average American is at the 1%.
it's
That's
insane.
not, the millionaires, and that's not the
I know.
billionaires. Like, this just regular middle, American, like, we think
Yeah.
we are the 1%. Because you think about it, there's more people on the planet that don't have running water. They
Uh-huh.
don't have, toilets. They don't have.
What's the when I crossed the border into Tijuana and I drove, it's past like La Mesa, like out sort of
Hmm.
east, eastern Tijuana, but sort of
Yeah,
in the. I
that's where
drove
I grew
past
up. Yeah, my neighborhood over
town.
there where I grew up. Yeah.
So there's a bunch of people. This is the story I got told from my friend, is because he's from there too, and he lives in Players now, so he kind of like made it to the, like we said, the nice part of Tijuana, but
Yeah.
he grew up out there, and he was saying all these people used to live in the river, on the
Yeah.
in the river, and then they wanted to do the river because they put that canal in there, to make it flow better or whatever, like to handle the flood waters, and so all these people lived there. They lived there in their however they did subsistently.
Hmm.
The government said you can't live here anymore because it wasn't their land or whatever. So they moved them. They gave them a suburb, and they literally like gave them a bunch of cardboard and said build your life there. And I drove past this place, and they don't have not running water. They don't not have energy. They have a cardboard house. Like
Hmm.
they live in a cardboard house, and that is 5 minutes from the border.
Yeah.
Across the border, and it's just there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like it's mine, and you can't see that unless you leave your little
Yeah.
nest. If you leave your little 1% nest where I'm from, my 1% nest, there's no way. People that back where I'm from. This is part of the reason why I get so annoyed. Is oh my god, this happened to me. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Do you understand what is happening? And I don't want to sound pompous. I don't want to sound like I'm woke and I understand the world, but
Yeah.
I do. I've seen people live in cardboard boxes.
Yeah.
I've seen that. I haven't experienced it. I've seen it, and it breaks my heart. It's like, come on, like
Yeah.
we've got stuff to give, and they're nice people. You meet them, and they're like, can I have 50 pesos, and that will make their wealth. 50 pesos is $2 for everybody who doesn't know how to do the conversion ratio, but
Yeah.
it makes their week, that sort of money. But for 50 pesos, they might like clean your whole car with a trap or like a rag. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's just like,
And they're right there. That's the crazy thing. That they're right there. Like, just
uh-huh.
10 miles north, and then you're like in one of the most luxurious like neighborhoods in San Diego. You know what I mean? Like,
Insane. It is so insane.
yes.
It's so, like I have friends who live in Encinitas in San Diego, and I stay with them.
Okay.
Love them. They're beautiful, lovely people. They're in the 1%. They're lovely people. I would never put it past them. But I went from that. I literally went from that. I did a news thing with Fox News in San Diego, and then I crossed the border. And I went from like that to like this new studio, flashy, and then I came across the border. I think it was like on the second day that I saw that, and I was like, what the, like, I was on my property, like walking to the surf every day, drinking a $5 coffee in the morning, and
Yeah.
and now I'm over here and I'm looking at this person who wants $2 to clean my entire car with a rag because he has to go home and buy some burritos for his family, some frijoles for his family. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, gee, come on, like,
And those people have had a rough existence, because see, before they were taken out of that Rio, right, the river
yeah,
area. Back in the 70s, there's been communities there forever, but back in the 70s, early 80s, I think, something like that, they there was a giant storm that happened, and the water just came, and they basically just took all of those
just
people out. A lot of people died, kind of thing. And then eventually they started settling in other places. But there are many, many, many settlements in Tijuana that started there, and then eventually they come in here, and then they
Yeah, yeah.
set themselves. And then those settlements become older, and maybe some people start doing a little bit better, and they start constructing more permanent stuff. But there's a lot of places that have started with they call them paracaidistas in Spanish, which is
Okay.
parachuters. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is like a
Uh-huh.
parachuter. And the reason they say that is because one day they're not there, and then the next day you wake up and bam, there's a whole community of cardboard box buildings, houses, right? They
Oh,
just
we got.
old pallets, whatever they can pick. It's like trash, basically. They essentially
Uh-huh.
used to build their homes,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's been happening forever. And it's usually like a lot of people from the south of the country that come with
Yeah,
aspirations
yeah.
to come into the United States.
Uh-huh.
But because the United States doesn't want them, and so they get stuck there in TJ, and so they think, oh, we're only going to be here, for temporary until we can cross. And
Hmm.
sometimes that turns into decades and decades, and some people probably make it.
It is. It's and I've heard that that range of people who live through Mexico. As you get south, obviously they become poorer, but the
Yeah,
resources in those places are more spread out because there's less people living there. So it is that,
yeah,
it's this migration of people going to the dream, which
yeah.
is the United States, and not quite making it, and then getting stuck, and it causes this,
In Tijuana.
congregation in
Yeah,
honor.
and that's why that city is so dysfunctional, is because there's so much influx of the people that are just passerbys. And
Yeah, yeah.
so crime is high, and there's a lot of stuff, right? I grew up in that town, and
Uh-huh.
I thought that the entirety of Mexico was that. I thought, like, oh, Mexico's just a dump.
Uh-huh.
And then when I went to Baja to follow the thing, I went to Ensenada, whatever, and I'm like, wow, this is beautiful. The roads are beautiful down here. The
Uh-huh.
beaches are beautiful. Like I went to some. There, I don't know if you made it up there to in Baja. There's the national park up in the mountains.
San Pedro Martir. Uh-huh.
Okay, a
San
beautiful
Pedro.
national
San
park
Pedro.
over there. As it rivals anything here in California. Yosemite, you call it whatever. They're just as beautiful out there. It's like with the
Yeah, what's it?
trees.
The Picacho del Diablo, the peak there. It's
Uh
like
huh.
the biggest peak in Baja,
Yeah.
maybe even Western Mexico, maybe. But
Yeah.
it's 3,000 meters high, which is I don't know in feet, but
Yeah.
just like this
6,000,
monolith of a
7,000.
mountain that just like just
You
incredible.
stand there and you can see both sides. Like you can see that side of the
Not a
coast and this
cockpit.
side of yeah.
Uh,
It's
The
pretty crazy.
the observatories there too,
Uh
like
huh. The observatory. We
yeah,
went to check that
uh-huh.
out. I mean, it's beautiful. You're like, what the hell? I didn't even know my country was this beautiful because I never traveled it.
In the middle of winter, there's snow up there too. It's a very Mexico. I haven't even begun. I've just touched the tip of the iceberg, and as you
Yeah.
said, even in Tijuana, I will admit I had fun times. Like there's some cool gastronomy in that city.
Yeah.
One of the best coffees I ever had in Mexico so far was in Tijuana. So there is that like nice culture. Obviously, there's the front of house and behind the house thing. And the second night I got there, someone got shot, 100 yards from my van.
Wow.
Like,
Okay.
there was a pretty rude awakening at, the cardboard boxes and all that sort of stuff. But, there is gems even in Tijuana. If you want to
Yeah.
experience it, you can. But
Yeah.
drive to Rosarito. It's
Yeah. There you go.
15 miles away. And it's
Yes.
just, it's night and day, the difference. And
Yeah.
then get rid of Ensenada, all of that. Drive into the desert, into the Sonoran Desert,
Yeah.
in the Mar de Cortez,
Yeah.
3 hours down into Baja, and you're just in paradise. It's the most.
I
It's one
went
of the,
to La Paz. You
oh
haven't
yeah,
been to La Paz yet?
yeah. La Paz is beautiful.
Okay, and the cool thing is that for those of you who don't know, like Baja's big. It's like 1,000 miles south with desert roads. It's kind of virgin. It's weird because that doesn't exist up here. Up here, like everything is already there's roads and there's signs and everything's explored and kind of
Uh-huh.
worked out for you. But you go down there, it's virgin. Like you could go to some beaches that have no signs that anyone's ever been there, kind of thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Or there's just a tiny little road with the dirt and stuff. And It's kind of weird to experience that so close to home. I mean, it's down there, but it's kind of far. Like you have to spend like I like to go to Guerrero Negro to see the whales.
Wales,
Right, it's a
yeah.
sanctuary there.
Balinas and the Wales, yeah.
Yeah, and so the thing is that it's like it's 14 hours drive down there. You know what I mean? Like, so it's kind of hairy. And so when we went to La Paz, I remember it's easy because you could just fly there.
Uh-huh.
Like you hop on a plane down here in Tijuana. You don't even have to cross over to Tijuana. I don't know if you know this, but you can
Yeah, the
you can park in the United States and cross over like a bridge, and then you
land.
hop into a plane in Tijuana. So now you're in like in another country, but you never
Uh-huh.
had to really go into the country. The only place you're inside of Mexico is inside the airport.
Uh-huh.
So it's a weird thing, right? And then you fly down there, you fly to La Paz, and then I mean that's a beautiful town with
Yeah,
beautiful
yeah.
beaches.
Very nice. Very
Yeah.
luxurious. Right on the Mar de Cortez, white silicate sands,
Hmm.
people running and exercising on the beach, beautiful
Yeah.
restaurants. Like, yeah, it's everyone's very kind too.
Yeah.
They also, if you don't speak Spanish that well, they speak kind of slowly down there, so it kind of helps a lot.
Yes. Yeah, so definitely it's cool. You're gonna go down there and then cross, you said, right, over to
Mazatlan,
Mazatlan. Okay.
and then I'm going to drive from Mazatlan to Nuevo Leon up in Monterrey, because
Okay.
that's where Gulf Energy, the people who are sponsoring me are.
Ah.
And
Monterrey.
so
And Monterrey is that's like a modern city. I don't know if you've ever been there, but I think it's like
they send me photos all the time of the mountains,
yeah.
and it's just
It,
absolutely stunning. Like it's a stunning, stunning
it's a
city.
modern city. It's you probably be like somewhere like in well, I don't know, LA. It's kind of trashy probably compared to them, but it's like modern buildings, like it's a metropolis area with a lot
Uh,
of people that
just
with
nestled
money.
in mountains too. Like it's like surrounded by this vista that's just
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah.
Yeah,
A lot of Teslas down there.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's I
exactly.
mean it's affluent, right? Like city in Mexico. I've never been there. I know people from there, but I definitely want to go visit it one day. I want to go visit Mexico one day too. I just have to,
You
you
should do
know.
it. You should do it.
Yeah, I got to
Yeah.
do it. I got to get a little bit more of the adventure spirit. Look at you. You're from Australia
Oh,
out here exploring the Americas. How long
uh-huh.
have you been on the road?
I left Australia in 2014 for
Okay,
Canada. So I've been on the road, what, 6 years, I
6
guess.
years. Yeah.
I've been back twice. I'm an ecologist. I started my professional life as an ecologist, a terrestrial ecologist. So
What's
I've
an
been
ecologist?
just basically like nature. I I look at degraded environmental systems and I try to figure out a way to make them function the way that they should naturally.
Mm,
Um, Basically, humans come along and they do their agriculture and they
yeah.
destroy the land for hundreds of years. And then my job is to come in and repair it, get it back to a functional state. So
Ooh.
I
Oh,
did
I see.
that for years and I started, well, done a bunch of things. I was a scuba diver in Nova Scotia, a scientific scuba diver in Nova Scotia for a while. And
Wow.
I was
Okay.
I was a wildlife controller at an airport in Vancouver in British Columbia.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay.
I've done a bunch of. I was a dishwasher once at a ski resort too. So like I've done a bunch of non-exciting jobs too, just like means for an end. But
Yeah.
um, I did that in Australia for a while, and on this trip I've run out of money a couple of times, so I've had to sort of fly back and for a couple of months. So,
And then
but
work.
but other than those couple of months, I've been all around the place for the last 6 years. So it's
Yeah.
been good to
You're
stop
what's
in
that?
Ensenada. It's been good to stop in Ensenada.
Oh,
Actually,
I
this is the
see.
longest I've stopped for a long time, and
Yeah.
kind of starting to feel like home. This city, all my friends here, and it's kind
Yeah.
of weird. I'm sort of like growing roots, but I'm pulling them out every so often. I'm like, okay, come on,
Yeah.
I've got to stay itchy. I've got to get
How
on the
old
road.
are you?
I just turned 31, actually.
Oh, you're young. Okay. Yeah, you're young.
Right.
It's weird. Has your family been nomadic at any point, or your family's not unlike you? They live in a place and that's it.
I have I come from a very working, sort of lower middle class family in Australia, like very working class, which kind of like I attribute a lot of my like physical hands-on skills too, because I was always like, Dad was always like, what are vacations? Come on, we're building a fence. We're doing this today. And my uncle's a mechanic, and so I sort of grew up around that, that sort of stuff. So they're really not adventurous. Well, I mean, adventurous as in
Traveling. They're not. They
traveling
don't
on
have
a
the
plane,
traveling bug.
but we always did, we always had full drives, and
I
we'd
see.
always go camping. And there's lots of times where, we would go camping and I'd just run off, and like there'd be like dingoes everywhere, and I'd see sharks in the water, and wildness. So I guess there's an element of that, but not like get on a plane and go to another culture and see all that. Then not really. My older sister, she sort of started traveling. She lived in Brazil for 6 months, I think, when I was younger, and I really was like, whoa, that's cool. Like we can do that. That's something we can
Yeah.
do. That helped a little. That helped a lot. But
I
other
see.
than her, my family's pretty stagnant. They like their zone. So
They're pretty
yeah,
average.
yeah,
Send roots. Yeah,
yeah.
that's a weird thing because it's well, I mean, you gotta like we're talking about being privileged. Like not everyone in the world could do what you're doing. Like right,
Absolutely.
it definitely takes a lot of resources to just pick up and go. You
Uh-huh.
wouldn't think so, but it is because I mean, just like countries won't just let you in. You're like, what? You want to come in and travel? Like, no. Like, you gotta have some kind of roots back home to make sure you're not. Especially the United States, they're like, we gotta make sure you're not trying to come in, stay, kind of thing. That's how they.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
how.
I think especially being a Mexican in the United States is quite sad. Your neighbors, how can
Yeah.
me as an Australian come from a completely opposite side of the world? I can walk up and they're joking with me. Oh, mate, like I used to surf. Like they might even tell a joke in an Aussie accent to me. And this is at the border. My
Yeah.
Mexican friends go to the border and it's night and day. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Where's your bank account balance? That it's
Yeah. Yeah. They
super,
ask them, well, you own a house? You have a business? Like, we're not gonna let you in if you don't have some roots in Mexico.
super different, super
Yeah.
different experience. So
Yeah.
yeah, and as you said, not everybody can achieve this, and I completely understand that, and that's something I want to say loud and clear is that I understand that. I don't admit ever that this is something that everybody can have or achieve in their life. It's me using my privilege, I would say, in a way that I think and hope will benefit a lot of people. Just
I think it makes better people to travel and to see other cultures and to see the way other people live. That's what's missing, I think, in societies.
totally get
It's
connectivity, right?
perspective.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
people like will say like, hey, all these Mexicans will have like kind of like a bias view against like Mexicans coming into the state, and then they'll look at me and they'll be like, me, you're different, and I'm like, no, I'm not different. I'm
Oh no.
exactly the person you're describing. I'm the person that came in here illegally. It's just
Uh-huh.
you don't know because you don't know us. But if you got to know us, you would know we're just like people like you. And that's what it does, like traveling the world. That you would see how people in Alaska are living. I don't know how people in Alaska live. Like I never been
Yeah.
up there. So
Yeah, yeah. And it's
perspective.
different. It is different. Yeah. It's different, but in a different way. I think that's all. Yeah. You touched it. You touched a good subject there. Like, for example, when I came from the United States to Mexico last year, when I crossed the border, had been told so many stories about this place. It's dangerous. This is going to happen to you. That's going to happen to you. I was scared. I'll admit it. 100%. I was crossing that border and I was, like, what's going to happen to me? Blah, 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 blah. Like I was worried. I was like, there's all these stories. And I got here. It was probably a good thing that happened to me because I got here and just the exact opposite. People were, people are lovely, open. They don't have much, but whatever they have, they're willing to share. They're willing to help. You get into trouble. I know a guy who knows a guy. It's like it's a community.
Yeah.
Sometimes you might have to like pay your way out of something, like pay your way forward because I'm a gringo to them. I have
Yeah.
green eyes, but whatever, I can afford it, kind of thing. So I kind of get it. But other than that, it's just it's so different. And the people who were telling me all these stories, yeah, no, it's dangerous. Right? I am starting to begin to question the authenticity of their point of view. I would highly doubt that they'd ever been down here,
Yeah.
or if they did, they didn't leave a closed gated community or resort, because if they did, I'm absolutely sure. I mean, there are bad people. There's bad people everywhere, but I'm sure they would have had a very different experience. You go to some of these fishing villages and they're just excited. They're like, first of all, what the hell? Okay, that's a cool lifestyle. Do you want a lobster? Do you want a lobster burrito that my wife made for me fresh? You can have half of my lunch.
Yeah.
Like it's so absolutely different to the perspective that a lot of people have. And that's the story that I hear a lot of from the entire world. It's not even just Mexico, USA. People are scared of what they don't know.
Yeah.
They're scared of what they don't know. And then these stories, it's like this whisper game, and the whisper turns into a lie that grows larger and larger. And people just start believing.
Yeah. I've heard that it's dangerous over there,
Like even here in Mexico, people are saying, oh, wait till you get to Guerrero, like the state. Yeah. Oh, wait. And then when I get to Guerrero, wait till you get to Guatemala. Wait till you get to Honduras. Like it's going to be the same perpetuated story the whole way down. And I'm sure they're right in certain ways. And yeah, Mexico isn't a completely safe place, but neither is LA.
Yeah, no.
Neither is LA. Neither is Vancouver, British Columbia. In East Vancouver on the Hastings Street, that place is tent city, and there's people committing homicides. It's some of the highest homicide rates of any North American city on the planet. Some of the highest drug use rates. Like you don't feel safe and comfortable there, no matter what skin you're wearing. So yeah. You've got to see it. You've got to experience it firsthand, and a lot of people don't. A lot of people just perpetuate these ideas of
they just put too much emphasis on what they've heard. I've heard that it's dangerous. Ben from Hasta Alaska told me a thing. He goes, every border you cross, he goes, people on this side, they tell you not to go over there because it's dangerous over there. And then once you cross, people go, oh, good thing you came from over there because it's dangerous where you come from.
It's so true, man. It's so true. It's so true. I'm not in the thick of it yet,
Yeah.
I've been in those situations over the travels, over my years and all of that. But this is different. It's crossing land borders, which is kind of scary to a lot of people. But yeah, just that. Well, there's been a couple of, like even in Alaska to British Columbia, the British Columbians are, oh man, Alaska's dangerous. They all have guns. It's like, yeah, they all have guns, but they're not shooting everybody. Like, well, at least not everybody's shooting everybody. Like, obviously some things happen, but yeah, I love that perspective that you gain,
by going to places. Yeah. And I think you're one of the few that are gaining. I mean, there's a huge community of humans that are traveling the world and seeing places, but I think more of us need to do that. It's we think our reality is here when we see outside our window, and it's not. It's just a tiny portion of it. And I think the only way to broaden your perspective is just to go out there and see it. And it's scary. I'm scared. Like I'm scared to go to like Europe, for example. I shouldn't be. Like, why should I be scared to go to Europe? Just because I never done it, and the language barrier and I should just like.
You know what I get a lot as an Australian, obviously. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about Australia?
Australia? The desert.
The desert?
Probably. Yeah, that's about it. The Opera House in Sydney.
Well, that's good. That's a good perspective. Most people are like, what about the sharks? And I'm like, oh, yeah, man, the sharks have legs. The sharks have legs. They come on land and they take, 5 people a day. They plan it. They're in the water and they're like, okay,
Sharks.
I'm going to get that Mexican guy who's coming. He just got off the plane. That's some good
Sharks.
He eats some good tacos. He's got some good blood. That guy. I'm gonna gnaw on his arm.
Yeah. Kangaroos though, they can box you.
They can. I got a good story actually. I was with my brother when we were younger. We were on a camping trip and some kangaroos are kind of a bit friendly because they kind of get hand tamed. But there was this mother. It was a wallaby, not a kangaroo, a smaller kangaroo. And my brother and me were like there, and it had a little baby Joey in its pouch, and we were like patting it was letting us, and we were feeding the mum. But then I decided I was going to be, a little, I don't know, annoying brother, and I started annoying the wallaby. I started like pushing it, poking it, and then it's like kind of getting annoyed. And then I kind of like gave it a good jab. Just I don't know why. I was just being a little twerp, a little kid, and the thing got on its tail and kicked my brother.
Oh, yeah. So they do it, right?
They
Yeah.
do it, yeah. And unfortunately, he got the brunt of the joke, not me. And I was like, oh, okay, that's how it happened. So, but you have to be, yeah. I'd
Yeah.
have to go to one of the big males or
Oh man, I saw one video where this one was like so muscular. It was like scary. Like I was like, I would not want to be in front of this dude when he's angry. Like he looked like he could beat anyone.
yeah. And they do. Like you walk up to them if they're with their mob, like with their girls, and you walk up to them and they'll just flex at you and they'll grunt, and you're like, okay, like don't worry, I'm not
Yeah.
attracted to the female kangaroos. Like
I'm not here
they're
to
all
steal
yours.
your girlfriends.
They're all yours, buddy. So, yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
I
Australia can be a dangerous place, but there's millions of people who live there, and they
yeah.
seem to reproduce and survive just fine.
Yeah,
So
I wanna visit Australia one of these days too. I want to visit all kinds of places. It's just I gotta work my way up to this. I think the weird thing is like you're doing it right. You're traveling the world when you're young and you have like energy. Like if you wait till you're like my age, I'm like seriously thinking like I got like 10 years of like stamina in me, like where I can work. So I have to like kind of make sure that I make enough money so that I can live the rest of my life. Hopefully if I'm still healthy. Luckily I got good genes. My dad is like 90 and my mom's 80. So
uh-huh.
and I've never had any serious issues, so I'm good. I think I'll be okay. I just if I don't not stupid and totally get some bad habits or whatever. But I mean, we're in the States. There's a lot of chemicals in our food.
Uh-huh.
Those things are what you start thinking my age, right? So I'm like, I don't have a lot of time left to travel the world. Like I have to like do it now, hurry up and set something up, and then. But the thing that
Yeah.
I'm doing right now is trying to set up a thing where I can make money passively,
Uh-huh.
right? So because right now I still have to show up, and if the day that I'm gonna make videos, I don't make money, right? Even though I'm selling parts and stuff and batteries, they don't sell if I don't promote them and stuff. So I'm like, I'm trying to get this thing where and so it's gonna take me a few more years, I think. But after
Yeah.
that, I think I'm gonna join you and travel the world
Do it. Yeah.
because that's what I
Yeah.
want to do.
If you ever want to come on a camping trip somewhere in Mexico that you haven't been, man, like totally, you're more than welcome. Bring. Do you have kids? And
I don't have kids. I just have a wife and dogs. And that's about it.
bring your wife. If you can bring your dog, bring your dogs. There's
Yeah.
plenty of room. We can set up some space, and you can do it in an electric vehicle still. So yeah,
Yeah.
you're
What
welcome.
is what is your plan? So once you get down there, you figure what's the timeline the from you to finish this trip? You don't?
It's open-ended. Anything can happen.
Oh, okay.
I thought that I was gonna do it in 2 years,
Okay.
from Alaska to Argentina, and then that didn't happen. And this whole last year has been a write-off. Like pretty much an entire year has just been, I don't know
Yeah,
what
for
happened.
you and the entire world. So it's kind of like it didn't happen. It's a
Exactly.
do-over. Yeah.
So beginning of next year, I'll start again, and I don't know, maybe another 2 years. The thing is, I just have so much fun.
Yeah. So you
I
you
think
don't
I'm
have like a rush. You're not like it's not the destination.
gonna.
Is the journey for you, right? So it's like if it takes you longer,
That,
then
that's something I've learned on the trip too. A lot of people have that rush mentality, and I think that's something I've learned by getting off the grid and mobile, at the same time. It's
yeah.
like, you know what? My biggest overhead, other than the initial investment, is food. I just have to pay for food, and
Yeah.
food's cheap here.
Yeah.
It's not expensive, and I think, oh, I'm going to spend 2 days in this place, and then 3 weeks later, I'm like, okay, I should probably leave tomorrow. Or I make some friends, and
Yeah.
you never know
Okay.
what you're going to
Oh, I
experience. All
see.
the
So
stories you're gonna hear. Yeah,
so it's
it
open.
didn't start out like that though. It didn't start out like that. It started out as like I'm doing this, and it kind of didn't work. It didn't fit that model of unlimited energy, gas powered vehicles. The internal combustion. That model fits perfectly with that that lifestyle fits perfectly with that model. With this lifestyle, something changes. You sort
You
of
go with
start
it.
yeah, go with the flow. What if there's no sun? What do you do? What if it's a snowstorm? You just wait until the energy comes, and then when it does, you can be mobile again. You got no there's no reason
Yeah.
other than the energy source, and
Yeah. Okay.
it's a
It's not
sacrifice.
like it's not like long way up. They had to skip the entirety of Mexico because they had to be at a place. They had a
I
schedule.
heard you giving Charlie a hard time about
I was
that.
like, come on, man! Like Mexico's the biggest country you guys cross. Chile's about the same length, but
Yeah, yeah.
but I'm
With
like,
diversity, yeah.
and you guys did it like in 2 days. What's up with that? Right?
Good. He missed out on a lot of beautiful stuff. I've just been in the Bajas, like,
Yeah.
and I've done the peninsula like 3 times since I got here,
Okay.
and just jumped on it. People are like, I'm going down for a road trip, I'd go down with them and fly back to get back to work kind of thing. But
Yeah.
in those times, I've just like in depth visited all these little nooks and crannies of just 2 states of
Just
Mexico.
buy it. Yeah.
Yeah, what's gonna happen when I get to Oaxaca? That place is heaven on earth. Like,
Yes,
yeah,
Oaxaca, Quintana Roo. I mean, there's the jungles over there. It's super tropical.
Nayarit, and then even on the other side, Quintana Roo. Yeah, oh, you just said that Quintana Roo. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a cenotes, and
Yeah.
it's a playground, a beautiful playground. This country. So
Yeah, and it's huge. So yeah, I think it's gonna take you a while at the rate that you're going. Yeah.
I was I was at someone held a little gathering for my birthday the other night for me here, and I was there. I was talking to my friend Roman, and he was like, "I think you're going to spend 3 years in Mexico," and I was like, "No, don't say that." Like, if I spend
Well,
3 years in Mexico, how long am I going to spend in Argentina? Like, come on, man.
oh no,
Peru,
not only that, Colombia. I didn't know how beautiful Colombia was until I saw the footage from these guys. Long way up. I was
oh
like,
yeah,
holy mother! Like that place looks amazing,
uh-huh.
right?
That's
And
the
I'm
other
like,
cool thing about being with your window too. I have lots of Latinos and Latinas messaging me and saying like, "Come and I want to show you everything about my country." And it's kind
yeah,
of like it's a good and a bad thing. Sometimes you have to sort of ignore your social media because if you want to
yeah,
rush through somewhere, you're never going to do it. Seeing a place from the eyes of a local,
yeah,
it's the best. It's
yeah,
100% the best. Not
yeah,
only is it safer for anyone who's worried about safety, it is just when I take people to my city in Australia, I'm giving them the deluxe tour, and people are really proud of where they're from. They're really proud of all the
yeah,
beauty, and there's always something. I've
yeah,
never, I've tried to never deny myself the opportunity of seeing somewhere through the eyes of a local. So, yeah,
yeah,
that's the thing. That's the problem, Jehu. It's like, how long is this going to take? Well, how many cool people am I going to meet?
yeah. Yeah, that's true. Well, no, that's a good way to do it because why put a time limit on the fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you could do it sustainably, why not? Right?
Yeah, you
Like if
don't need much money either, especially in these countries. So,
yeah.
like even with
Plus,
my small YouTube audience, and
as
I
that YouTube audience grows, then it becomes like sustainable.
more
Look at Ben. Ben is making quite a bit now, enough to buy a new car, a new rig, and travel and take some time off and do that whole thing, right?
yeah,
He's
and
he's going about it a little bit different. He went the Patreon way.
yeah,
Have you thought about how if you want to do that way or whatever?
I
Because
have Patreon. I have Patreon. Yeah. It,
but he put all his content behind that paywall, and it
okay.
seems
Yeah.
to be
No.
working for him.
My theory is my not theory. What's the best way to my ethics are to
Yeah.
give everybody the content. I don't want to. I don't want to hide. And maybe I'm going to take a financial hit from that. But the whole thing about Root del Sol and the message that I want to bring is access. The whole reason I chose to not do Australia, where I'd be way more comfortable and way more knowledgeable, is because of that. I want to take this thing and show everybody. And that's the
Yeah.
same thing. With the internet, it's an open window for everyone to see.
Yeah.
And the people who can jump on behind a thing, and I can give them some things extra, but I put most of my energy in giving that message out to everybody,
To everyone.
regardless. I try to translate all of all of my videos with subtitles
Oh,
and
okay.
it accessible in that way. Um, so yeah, that's my personal ethics. So, and I understand why people need it because you need to make money. You do, and I do
Yeah.
need to make money. I should be a little bit. One of my buddies here was like, "You capped your Patreon at this much money? Like, what are you doing, man? You could make thousands of dollars on there if you wanted to." And I'm like, "No, I don't. I don't want to. If I do that, it means I'm trying to capitalize on something that's not my mission. My mission is literally to tell a story and to show people the messages, the
Yeah.
experiences, and all of that sort of stuff. So I'm not trying to brag or bag on anybody's approach, but that's just me.
Yeah.
I do Patreon, but I'm not. I'm never going to put all of my content behind it. I'm always going
Behind
to
that.
try to keep it open and visible to a lot of people. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sort of the same way. Like, there's a lot of schemes of making money where you ask them and you do, and I've never been attracted to them. I've been like even sponsorships. I have trouble with that because one, they don't ever want to pay you as much as I can make by just genuinely helping people.
uh-huh.
Like, so I'm kind of like a product reviewer thinker, and then I just get this stuff and then I put like the affiliate links in my description, and then thousands of people go and buy the stuff. So I'm like, whoa, okay, it's making
Yeah.
money, right? Um, and so I never have to do like a ad on my videos. Like, I never have to be like a baked in ad. I know that YouTube serves the videos with ads and
Uh-huh.
stuff, but I've never, because it's getting really bad in YouTube. I think where like all these creators, some of them are terrible at doing it, and you have to sit and watch the same ad every video. Like NordVPN,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Squarespace. It's like,
Uh-huh.
how many times can I hear the 40-second ad?
Mm-hmm.
It's like so it gets really old, and I'm like, I haven't made a point to tell my audience that maybe are not aware or haven't noticed that I don't do that in my videos. But I'm like, hey, listen,
Uh-huh.
I don't put you through these 40 seconds or 1.5 minute stupid ads for something that you don't need, right? Like, because I figure out how to do it a different way. Like, people should appreciate that, and it's
Yeah.
hard. I was broke for many years doing this until finally I got enough momentum, right? So yeah, if you stick with it, I think you'll. I think
Yeah.
that the strategy of giving it for free, making it easy for people to see it without a lot of having
If
to them commit or whatever is like it's a good one. I think it'll eventually
I
pay it
made
off.
it exclusive and I was making more than enough money to survive, I think I would try to like reinvest in a way that, like, for example, someone like, I don't know, he's huge, Mr. Beast. You know who Mr. Beast
Hmm.
is. We all do. We're all YouTubers. He
Yeah.
makes his YouTube money and then he just gives it away. And that's a super awesome model. Like, if I was going to do something like that, it would be for that reason. It would be to do good and just get this snowball effect rolling. Because, like, for example, if somehow I built that window like Mr. Beast has with all of his subscribers, and then something like Puerto Rico happens,
Yeah.
how cool would it be to just have this allocated resource to just be like, all right, let's use what I know and what I do to make that situation better. And
Yeah.
yeah, that there's sort of like that. I don't know. It sounds like a humanitarian, like but really, it's genuine. It's a genuine want. If I wanted to make money, I wouldn't be doing this. I would be in Australia
Yes.
doing
That's what
doing.
I tell people all the time. I'm like, there's like a million ways to make money in the United States. I'm like, stock market, I could insurance. I'm
Uh-huh,
like, I do this because I like doing this. Like,
uh-huh.
having
Yeah, yeah.
fun is like at the top of my priorities. Making money is like secondary, right?
It's
Like,
it hurts a lot. Obviously, haters are part of this. All of that. You got to kind of learn to ignore them. But the
yeah,
one that particularly hurts a lot is when people say, you're capitalizing on this, and I'm always like, no, you guys are so like, I have a I have a university education and a lot of experience in like certain fields of work. I've not
yeah,
to talk myself up, but if I wanted to make money, I would not be making videos for less than minimum wage
yeah.
on YouTube. I'd be doing that. I'd be doing that. This is like a, this is a, this
It's
is
like a
an outrage.
mission. Yeah,
This is, it's like I want to do something. I want to do something real with my time on this planet. I don't want to just exist. Existing appeal to me.
Well, exists with style. I mean, and I think gaining perspective is a very important one. It will make you a better person as you grow older, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and it'll be like you have way much more perspective than the average person will ever have because you have seen way more things. You have
Uh-huh.
met more people. You have seen more ways of life, and so that's gonna help you, I think. And I think that people don't value that as much, right? But I think you value it when you start getting older. So you're ahead of the curve because you're younger and you're starting to see that this early, right? Like people don't value that when you're your age. You just want to make
Uh-huh.
money. You want to make your mark in the world. You want to be like, I want to get a car and a house and, like do the thing, meet the girl and, the prettiest girl that you can meet so that people are envy of me. That's sort of the mentality I think that most, humans go
Uh-huh.
through, especially males, right?
Uh-huh.
But
Totally.
if you can free yourself from that, you're the much better you will be, I think.
That was definitely like one of the transitions that happened, that was starting to happen, early on from this. I'd traveled and I'd done some sort of intrinsic travel as well before, but nothing like this. There was a lot of like neuron pathways that were just opening up in my brain, which is difficult and tiring. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. Like you also develop your capacity for empathy as well. Like
Yeah.
I have a twin brother. What days? We're not identical, but I have a twin brother, and we're complete opposites. You know, but I
Mhm.
don't feel better than him because I have these perspectives or anything like that. If anything, I kind of understand. I understand why, I understand why he appreciates the life that he has and the privileges that he has, whether he's aware of them or not, I don't know, but maybe he's the smart one, out of us, because he's appreciating what he has, what he's been given with this life that he has. So
Yeah.
you also develop this empathetic capacity at the same time. um, and you kind of can get envious of other people at times as well. You're like, oh, these people don't have much, but they're doing well. Like
Hmm.
some of these fishermen in Baja live on the most beautiful beaches on the planet, and they eat fresh local seafood, and they don't even realize how wealthy they are.
Yeah.
Not in financial terms, but in general life terms, they're
Yeah.
doing super good. You know, they might
Yeah.
drink a bottle of tequila every 3 days, and that's all they need. They don't. What else do you need,
Yeah.
really? You need to live in Silicon Valley and make your $1 trillion mega scheme, you know, pyramid scheme business to be happy.
Yeah.
Spend your
No, and
life.
it's probably a more stressful life, like they're stressing out. They're yeah,
Like,
it's
who's the more wealthy person at the end of the day? So yeah, you
yeah.
learn to have that capacity for understanding of why people live their what with the life that they do, and
Yeah.
and and I
But
I,
I
I
think
love.
it empowers you to be able to take better decisions to not get trapped in a life that you don't like, right?
Uh-huh,
Like I realize that sometimes we kind of see things, right? The older you get, the more you see. And like I said, I think you're ahead of the curve. But I think there's a lot of people that are trapped.
uh-huh,
It's just the one way that they see everyone else is living. That's how they're gonna live, and they don't like
uh-huh.
it, and they don't feel like they belong there, and they're not, and they're stressed and stuff, and they just don't know how to get out of it, right? And that'd be a terrible place to be. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
you're gaining the tools that you'll need to not ever be there. You're
uh-huh,
like, because now you've seen how people live in places, and you
uh-huh,
know that there's not one way to live life. You can go and have a job and do the thing and raise the family. That's one way. It
uh-huh,
fulfills some
uh-huh.
people, right? But you could also not. You could also just travel the world, and it's just whatever makes you feel more happier. I think
Happy, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And there's choices, yeah, absolutely. That's one of the problems too. Like I visit all these cool places, and I'm like, you know what? I'll come back and live here. Like this is where I'm going to live. And then I go to the next place, and I'm like, you know what? I like the way they do things here. This is where I'm going to live. And then you have 20 options, and you're like, whoa, okay. They
yes,
all have their reasons, and they're cool. And you kind of think,
yeah.
am I ever going to be able to choose one? I don't know. Maybe I'm just never going to be able to choose because I know what
You might be
exists.
destined to travel the world for the rest of your life.
Well, that would be tough, right?
I don't know. Maybe.
I'm, I'm, I'm,
Depends.
I'm joking. That it would be.
Well, because here's the thing. I early on this podcast, I had Fun for Lewis. You
Oh
know
yeah,
that guy?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, and that guy was a serious traveler around the
Uh-huh.
world for decades, right? Like a whole decade or something. Um, then I'm like, wait, out of all the places in the planet that you've traveled, I want to say over 200 countries or something. He told me, I think. I'm like, L.A. You picked L.A. to come and live in Venice Beach, right? I'm like, I find it strange, but maybe not. I mean, maybe this is a more beautiful place than I realize, right? Because I'm here all the time, and so I'm like, yeah, this is a cool place to live. But I don't know if I had exposure to all this half of the world if I choose this place to come. You know what I mean? Like,
I've been not 200 countries, but around the world a bit,
hmm
and enough to have these perspectives that we're talking about. And California, man, there's like, okay, it might not be the most beautiful. It might not be the most like, not the people might not be the most nice or genuine, or there might be all of this division, Mexicans, Asians, white people, like
yes.
all of this division and stuff that exists.
hmm
But there is something very special about California in general, especially Southern California. I feel a very strong connection to that place. I feel very at home ish. I think there's like this entrepreneurial acceptance, you know?
Yeah.
It is like a place for dreamers. It's a place where people can go and they can think, there's all these people trying to do stuff, and there's always stuff moving, and forward thinkers. And when you're surrounded, in that culture, you can't help but just to become part of it and to experience. And that's kind of the vibe that I get, coupled
Yeah.
with amazing mountains, and you
Yeah.
got ski resorts and deserts and
Sunny
beautiful
days.
surfing, sunny beaches, and
Sunny
beautiful
days year
people.
round. Yeah.
Nice cars, and there's popular culture, there's alternative culture. So you've got all of these things. It might not be the best of the best, but it's a pretty good chunk of everything. Plus
Yeah.
that pinnacle entrepreneurial,
Yeah.
spirit that exists, and it's very very rare to find that. Like the
Yeah.
original startup community of the world is Silicon Valley. There's all
Yeah.
these other Tel Aviv and places around the world that exist now, but they only existed because in the 80s and 90s the silicon wafer chips started in that valley, and people just had that entrepreneurial spirit, and you go there and you feel it, and everybody's chasing VCs and blah, 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 and it's like, whoa, like this is
Yeah.
real. This is real life. It's not movies. It's real. So
Yeah. I
I
mean,
get it.
there's a reason why there's like 23 million people just in Southern California, right? Like,
Yeah.
obviously, it's not a place that sucks that much. I mean, it's
Uh-huh.
got its own issues, and maybe
Uh-huh.
that's the reason. Like, some of those are because there's so many of us here,
Uh-huh.
but
Yeah.
obviously, there's a reason why we're all here. I just sometimes you forget it because
Yeah. Yeah.
you're always here,
You become sterile to it.
oblivious. Yeah.
Yeah. Oblivious. Nothing's new. I mean, that's the thing. Like for me, because I spent the majority of my life in Australia, and I will say it's paradise. Where I'm from, the weather's perfect. There's resources, just insane abundance. All of the things I sort of described about California are there, plus less people.
Less people.
Everyone's a little bit more cohesive in cultural. There are divisions, but much more cohesive than the melting pot that is California. So, like, in a way, I one of the downsides to that paradise that I've come from and that privilege that I've come from is just that sterileness. It's like we don't even realize how lucky we are, or how much we have. And I left, and I look at it now, and I'm like, whoa, like I'm from paradise. It's like
Yeah.
that's the real deal. Other than the one downside, I will admit, is it doesn't have that entrepreneurial. People are a little bit, but it's not the same. It's not California. It's Australian. It's like, oh yeah, okay, we're gonna finish work on midday on Friday and go surfing and drink beer. Like, you know.
Yeah.
So, which is cool,
That's where
that
you
balance
retired.
too.
So you
Yeah,
come
it's like,
and live
yeah,
life here,
exactly.
and then you go over there and you retired over there. You're like, ah. That's the other thing
But
that people don't know, don't see that life is a journey.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yeah.
For people think that no, you do a thing and you're gonna be able to do that thing forever. It's like no, you're not gonna feel like doing the thing forever. Trust
No.
me, right?
No.
And
Uh-huh.
so it's a journey. You gotta enjoy every part of that journey as much as you can. And
Yeah.
so, you're literally on a journey.
Absolutely. And this is one, I'm going to have
Yeah,
many and I look forward to all of them. Well, not look forward to them. I'm enjoying the one now and I know there's going to be more.
yeah.
So try to live
Well,
in the moment and take it all in as much as I can. And when my time's up, it's up. And at least I'll be able to be grateful and thankful for all of the experiences that I got to have on this.
yeah. Well, we're rooting for you, man. I gotta go and check out your videos because I haven't, and I encourage my viewers to go see it because yeah, I love watching people travel the world. Uh, I just finished watching that other Long Way Up, and it was so interesting. And after a while, the whole technical part of the electric car that was like the background thing. You're like just watching them go through some cool cities. When you make it down to La Paz, not La Paz here, but well, La Paz here too, because they
Yeah.
didn't go there. So maybe that's your turn to show how cool La Paz, Baja California is. That's
Uh-huh.
a nice town, right? And so if you're gonna be there, you got to make a whole episode on that place. Um, that's how we get to experience some of these places for people that haven't been there. I've
Mm.
never been down to South America, but maybe I'll experience it through your eyes and through your journey.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, we're rooting for you. I hope you get back on the road and start pumping out this content so that we can check it out.
Definitely. I'll make some binge-worthy stuff, hopefully.
Yeah. You want to plug in your socials so that people can follow you. What's
Yep.
the name of your channel, and then if you have any other socials, I guess.
So basically, all my channels are unified, as in they have the same name. So if you just go to the search bar and type in Route, Route, Del Sol, Delsol,
Okay.
Route del Sol. I don't know how you want to say it, Route
Yeah.
del Sol.
Yeah.
But that's on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. YouTube's my main my main source of entertainment. I kind of like to do most of my stuff on there because it's the one I like the most for me as far as engaging people.
Yeah.
And if you want to support me, I have Patreon, and you can also make donations through PayPal on my website, which is www.rootedelsol.com. But yeah, don't feel obligated to do any of that. If you just want to join in on the adventure, like I said to Jehu before, it's all for free, and I want to keep it that way as best as I can. As long as I have enough money to eat, I'm going to be good.
There you go. Yeah, that's simple. Yeah, you will get to live your thing. Yeah, and it's very very enjoyable. I think you guys. I think you just haven't hit your critical mass yet, but I think because you're at the beginning of your journey still, so you still got another 14,000 miles or something down to go, and it's just the scenery becomes more and more beautiful. So I think you're gonna gain more audience. I think you're gonna get more views, and it's gonna allow you to just keep going after this trip. Who knows? You'll be doing another one. You'll be turning around, just coming right back up or something. I don't know.
We'll see what happens. Maybe I'll build. Maybe Elon will build me like a personal spaceship or something at that point in time, and I'll
There you
try
go.
to do it with electric plasma jets. Or let's think it. We'll make it happen somehow.
There you go. We'll do it. All right, man. Well, thank you for joining me today. It was very pleasurable talking to you.
Yeah.
And we'll have you again once you're hitting the next, the next mark or the next landmark or whatever, the next time where you have time and you're in a place. Because here's the thing. You're going to be in a lot of remote places while you travel, so you might not be able to do this. But, whenever you hit a town that you have good connection, let us know. We'll have you back.
Whenever my solar panels fall off again next.
the adventures will continue, that's for sure. Definitely. You never know. All right, man. Thank you. And we'll see you. Okay.
It was a pleasure.
Same here. Okay.
All right, dude.
Okay, bye.